Chapter 1032. The three assassins from the great extinguishing god dynasty were pulled out from the void. All of them were at the peak of the third nirvana realm, and their auras were very strong. Lin Tian stared at the three of them coldly. The great extinguishing god dynasty had tried to assassinate him 4 times in a row. This time, they had sent 4 experts at the third sky of nirvana realm. Moreover, they had dared to assassinate Wu Yi right in front of him. They had even used the slaughter sword intent to attack Wu Yi. This made him extremely angry. "Bad guys!" Little AI shouted angrily at the three of them. The 3 assassins from the great extinguishing god dynasty looked at each other. Their eyes flashed with determination and viciousness. They gritted their teeth and exploded at the same time. In an instant, their auras disappeared without a trace. All of them were destroyed in body and soul. They knew that they couldn't escape from the Emperor, so they chose to commit suicide. Whooshing Crocodile sneered. Wu Yi looked in that direction, and his gaze fell on Lin Tian and little AI. Seeing that the 2 of them were unscathed, although his expression was calm, there was a slight fluctuation in his eyes. He seemed to have calmed down. Lin Tian looked at the place where the 3 assassins from the great extinguishing god dynasty had exploded. He looked at Wu Yi and paused for a moment. He picked a few 6-colored flowers and tied them together. He stood up and walked to Wu Yi. He handed the flowers to Wu Yi and said, "Thank you for what you did just now." If Wu Yi hadn't helped him, he definitely wouldn't have survived. After all, it was impossible for him to fight against a third sky of Nirvana realm expert with his current cultivation level. Moreover, the other party was from the great extinguishing god dynasty, who was skilled in the art of killing. At this time, he didn't think about the other meaning of giving the flowers. He just felt that it was the most appropriate time to express his gratitude. After all, Wu Yi didn't lack anything. The flowers here were very beautiful and matched well with Wu Yi. Wu Yi hesitated for a moment. He looked at Lin Tian for a moment before he reached out and took the flowers from Lin Tian. Then, she gently shook her head at Lin Tian, clearly indicating that there was no need to thank her. Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. This powerful Empyrean-level woman was far too quiet. Tisk. Whooshing Crocodile looked at the 6-colored bouquet that Lin Tian handed to Wu Yi. He suddenly laughed with an ambiguous expression on his face. Lin Tian gave it a sideways glance and ignored it. After that, the group didn't stay any longer. They quickly left and headed to other places in the Heaven region. They traversed mountains and rivers and visited many places. Along the way, Lin Tian would use his divine thought to search for the sword's soul fragment at every place they passed. However, just like before, he did not get any results. In the blink of an eye, another few days passed. On this night, the sky was filled with stars. Lin Tian found a cave on a high cliff and stopped to rest for the time being. "Tomorrow, we can watch the sunrise here." Little AI pointed at the sky outside the cave. "Sure," Lin Tian said with a smile. This place was high enough, and the view was very good. Naturally, there was no problem watching the sunrise. This cave was very spacious. It was about 200 square meters. Wu Yi sat quietly at the side and looked at the sky outside the cave. He was in a daze. At the same time, he was a little confused, as if he was thinking about something. "Wu Yi, what's wrong?" Lin Tian asked. Wu Yi was usually very quiet, but the silence at this time made him feel a little different from usual. Wu Yi looked at him and shook her head gently. "Is it really nothing?" Lin Tian asked again. Wu Yi still shook her head and looked at the sky again. Lin Tian was a little suspicious, but he quickly stopped thinking about it. After all, Wu Yi was at the Empyrean level. There shouldn't be anything that could trouble her. Time passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than 4 hours had passed. There were more stars in the sky, and the bright moon looked even more charming. The whole earth was sprinkled with a layer of silver light. At this time, Whooshing Crocodile had already fallen asleep. Little AI hugged Whooshing Crocodile as a pillow and slept soundly. Lin Tian sat cross-legged on the side. His divine consciousness was completely immersed in his body. He silently cultivated and sorted out his cultivation. He was in a state where he could see both himself and the outside world. In the cave, only Wu Yi still had her eyes open. She kept looking at the sky outside the cave, lost in thought. Then, after a few dozen breaths, she retracted her gaze and looked at Lin Tian, little AI, and whooshing crocodile in the cave. She got up quietly and walked out of the cave. Soon, she disappeared at the entrance of the cave and walked further away. In the blink of an eye, more than 2 hours had passed. In the cave, Lin Tian opened his eyes at this time. Strands of golden divine light intertwined in his eyes. They were gentle and bright. After several hours of meditation, his Tao foundation had become more stable, and his aura had become more condensed. He calmly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and swept a glance at the cave where he was meditating. Then, a strange expression appeared on his face. This was because at this time, he only saw a whooshing crocodile and little AI. He didn't see Wu Yi. Wu Yi was not in this cave. He frowned slightly. He didn't wake up whooshing crocodile and little AI. He got up slightly and walked out of the cave. He scanned the surroundings, but he still didn't see Wu Yi. He paused at the entrance of the cave for a moment, then stepped further into the distance. His powerful divine sense spread out in all directions. Roar! The night was a paradise for demonic beasts. In the mountains near the high cliff, the roars of demonic beasts could be heard from time to time. It was like thunder piercing through the ears. It felt as if the mountains were shaking. Lin Tian stepped into the void and scanned the surroundings. His divine consciousness spread far and wide. Gradually, he left the cave and went further and further away. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed. At this time, Lin Tian felt a familiar aura. Very far away, under a big tree in the mountains, Wu Yi was curled up. Her beautiful brows were tightly knitted together. She seemed to be in great pain. Lin Tian's expression changed immediately. He directly increased his speed to the limit. In one step, he crossed to Wu Yi's side. Almost at the instant he crossed to Wu Yi's side, he trembled violently. He felt that the temperature next to Wu Yi was extremely cold. He felt as if his spirit was about to be frozen. He endured the bone-piercing cold and helped Wu Yi up. Both of his arms went numb. In an instant, he lost all feeling. He even felt a heart-wrenching pain. Wu Yi, what happened to you? He couldn't care less about himself and shouted. Wu Yi, a heavenly venerate, was actually curled up in such pain. This was something he had never expected. Wu Yi hugged her arms tightly in front of her chest. Her body was trembling, and her aura was chaotic. However, she still had some consciousness. Her eyelids twitched. With great effort, she opened her eyes a little and saw Lin Tian's blurry figure and anxious face. Go, she said weakly. How could Lin Tian leave? Although his body was so cold and piercing that he was about to lose consciousness when he held Wu Yi, he didn't even make a sound. At this time, he just felt that Wu Yi shouldn't be in such pain. It was really hard for him to accept that Wu Yi, who was usually so quiet, was suddenly in so much pain. What happened to you? He asked anxiously. Go. Wu Yi transmitted her divine will. Her voice was very weak, and she refused Lin Tian to leave. However, at this time, she didn't have much strength. Lin Tian naturally wouldn't leave. He gritted his teeth and endured the numbness in his body. A golden divine light surged out and wrapped Wu Yi. At the same time, he released his divine will to check on Wu Yi's current situation. Wu Yi was very strong, but at this time, she didn't have much strength to resist. Lin Tian's divine will entered her body and followed the chaos in her body all the way to the location of her origin. Suddenly, his divine will shook violently. In front of him, Wu Yi's life origin was emitting 2 different waves. One was holy and bright, as if it could illuminate and purify all things. The other was illusory and ethereal, as if it was primitive. In an instant, Lin Tian's numb body couldn't help but tremble. Holy light origin, void origin. His eyes were full of shock. Wu Yi's body actually had 2 different kinds of origin auras, and both of them were imperial physique origin. Holy light physique origin, void physique origin, dual imperial physique. He was shocked. He hugged Wu Yi and stared at Wu Yi, who had a painful expression on her face, in horror. A person actually had two types of imperial physique origin at the same time, possessing both the holy light physique and the void physique. What kind of terrifying capital was this? What kind of shocking thing was this? Since ancient times, in the history of cultivation, when had there ever been such a person? Not to mention having two types of imperial physique origin at the same time. Even having two types of ordinary origin at the same time was simply unheard of. Buzz. In Wu Yi's body, the two different types of life origin vibrated, as if they were fighting and rubbing against each other. Her aura became even more chaotic. Lin Tian's divine will that probed Wu Yi's body was directly shattered by this aura. He couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. At the same time, Wu Yi seemed to be in more pain. Her body curled up even tighter. "Go," she said weakly to Lin Tiandao. Lin Tian hugged Wu Yi, clearly feeling that Wu Yi's body had become colder, causing his body to feel even more piercing pain. At the same time, he also clearly understood the source of Wu Yi's pain. The two types of imperial physique origin in Wu Yi's body had not merged. At this time, they were unconsciously rubbing against each other, as if two destructive gods were fighting in Wu Yi's body. As a result, Wu Yi was naturally in great pain. "You knew this would happen, so you deliberately left the cave and ran here? You didn't want us to find out and worry?" At this time, he also understood why Wu Yi was abnormally staring at the sky in a daze when they were in the cave before. He also finally understood why Wu Yi silently left the cave and ran here. It was all because she didn't want them to find out about her pain and worry. At the same time, he glanced at the friction between the two types of origin in Wu Yi's body. He was even more certain that this was definitely not the first time Wu Yi had been in such pain. It should have been many times. Chapter 1033. Lin Tian was very anxious. Life essence was the most important thing to any living being. Once there was a problem with the life essence, or if it collapsed, it would directly lead to the death of the living being. No matter how strong one was, they couldn't avoid this outcome. Now that he saw the two life essences in Wu Yi's body colliding so violently and on the verge of collapse, his heart was in his mouth. How often does this happen? You didn't mention such a serious matter to anyone. He was anxious and angry. Obviously, Wu Yi didn't mention it to anyone. He didn't want anyone to worry, not even to the Violet Fairy. Wu Yi trembled. His body became colder and colder, and his aura became more and more chaotic. He gently pushed Lin Tian away. "You go. I'll be fine in a while." "What do you mean in a while?" "At most, one more time, and you'll die." Lin Tian was even angrier now. "You can't stand this aura." Wu Yi's aura was weak. At this time, Wu Yi's aura became colder and colder, as if it could freeze all things in the world. This kind of aura wasn't something an ordinary cultivator could withstand. Lin Tian hugged Wu Yi. His body was piercing and cold, and his divine soul was beginning to crack. It was about to collapse in the next moment. He gritted his teeth. Pure yang flames surged to protect his body, and the heart sutra of the sun madly circulated. His divine sense entered Wu Yi's body again and came to the side of Wu Yi's life essence. He saw that the two life essences in Wu Yi's body were colliding even more violently, as if they were fighting for their own domains. However, neither could win, so the collision continued. Lin Tian's mouth was full of blood. He used his divine sense to approach Wu Yi's life essence. Under the collision of the two life essences, he was naturally shaken violently, and cracks appeared on his sturdy body because of it. "You go. Don't worry about me." Wu Yi pushed Lin Tian away. "How can I not care?" Lin Tian spat out a mouthful of blood. He immediately opened his delusion breaker divine eye. Dragon patterns intertwined, and together with his divine will, he looked directly into Wu Yi's body. Origin of holy light, origin of void. You can't suppress their collision. "Let me." Even more blood gushed out of his mouth, but his gaze was even more resolute. His entire body emitted a vast divine light, and his abdomen directly lit up. His origin aura was like a vast galaxy, gushing out violently, and his tyrannical divine consciousness pulsed along with it. Wu Yi's voice was weak, and her body was trembling. What are you doing? It's just the origin of holy light and the origin of void. I have the reincarnation body, the strongest king body. Use my origin to suppress them. Lin Tian gritted his teeth. Buzz! The diagram of samsara shone brilliantly, enveloping him and Wu Yi together. His life essence glowed brightly, and strands of the light of the origin gushed out, directly entering Wu Yi's body. In the blink of an eye, it reached Wu Yi's life essence, forcibly breaking into the area where Wu Yi's origin of holy light and origin of the void were colliding. Cough! In just an instant, blood gushed out of his mouth again, and more cracks instantly appeared on his divine spirit body. At this time, Wu Yi naturally knew what Lin Tian was doing. There was a trace of anxiety in her weak voice, and her body struggled to push Lin Tian away. You stop, you'll die. Don't speak. Lin Tian hugged her tightly, not letting her struggle away. Blood flowed out of his mouth, and his face was pale. His body was in piercing pain, as if a sharp blade was cutting his flesh bit by bit. However, he didn't care at all. His delusion breaker divine eyes saw through illusions, and the light of the origin continued to flow into Wu Yi's body. He sacrificed the light of the origin to Wu Yi's life essence, forcibly entering it again, and coughed up another mouthful of blood essence. However, he didn't have any reaction to this. Enduring the intense pain in his body, he guided his light of the origin to intertwine between the origin of holy light and origin of the void in Wu Yi's body. Strands of light surged, blocking their friction and collision. Cough! This action naturally caused him to be injured again. At the same time, the friction and collision between the origin of holy light and origin of the void in Wu Yi's body had indeed weakened by a bit. Of course, it was only a bit weaker. Lin Tian was determined. He gritted his teeth, and his entire body lit up. The light of the origin he emitted was even thicker, and his aura was even stronger. With a buzz, a ball of divine light floated out of his body. It contained half of his reincarnation origin, and it was extremely divine and holy. When this level of origin appeared, the weak Wu Yi's expression changed for the first time. No, you stop. She was a little anxious. With her cultivation, she could naturally see that this was half of Lin Tian's reincarnation origin. He was obviously trying to use his reincarnation origin to forcefully suppress the collision between the origin of holy light and origin of the void in her body. If he couldn't take it back, or the origin of holy light and origin of the void in her body would collapse, Lin Tian would be half crippled, or even die. Lin Tian hugged her tightly, his gaze firm. I can help you. Definitely, he said. As early as the first time he saw Wu Yi, he felt that this woman was very familiar and very close. Her quietness touched him from time to time, and she had even saved his life. At this time, seeing Wu Yi in so much pain, he also felt very uncomfortable. In fact, if he let it go, Wu Yi would soon self-destruct and die from the collision between the two origin of the king's bodies in her body. How could he watch this continue? No matter what, he couldn't do it. With a buzz, half of his reincarnation origin surged, carrying a vast power as vast as the galaxy, and directly entered Wu Yi's body. In the blink of an eye, it arrived at the two origin of life in Wu Yi's body, turned it to a divine cloud, and directly covered it. Suddenly, he coughed up blood again. More cracks appeared on his divine soul, and monstrous waves surged in his sea of consciousness. However, his gaze didn't change at all. It was still firm and even a little cold. Buzz! He opened his divine eye of delusion breaker, and half of his reincarnation origin was guided by him, forcibly squeezing into the middle of Wu Yi's origin of holy light and origin of void. It was like a saint, resolving the collision between the two origins and calming them down. The origin of holy light and origin of void trembled obviously, and the momentum was reduced, but it was still very intense. Such a situation naturally caused Lin Tian to suffer from the backlash and heavy injuries again and again. In essence, blood kept gushing out of his mouth. However, he still didn't care. He didn't even frown and didn't even let out a groan. The divine eye of Delusion Breaker was open. At this time, he completely ignored himself and only used half of his reincarnation origin to forcibly suppress and resolve the collision between the origin of holy light and origin of void in Wu Yi's body. It had to be said that the reincarnation physique, which was said to be once reincarnation appears, there is no king physique in the world, was really powerful. With his current cultivation in the Wuzhen realm, he used half of his reincarnation origin to enter Wu Yi's body, and he actually managed to greatly suppress the collision between the origin of holy light and origin of void, of Heavenly Lord level Wu Yi's origin of holy light and origin of void, causing the two king physiques to become much quieter. However, the two king physique origins had been colliding in Wu Yi's body for too long, and it had evolved to a terrifying degree. Although it was much quieter, it was difficult to stop, and they were still colliding. At the same time, they squeezed the half of Lin Tian's reincarnation origin, almost causing it to collapse. Lin Tian coughed up blood again. Then, the two king physique origins seemed to have produced a rebound, and the degree of collision began to become more intense. Cough! Lin Tian coughed up blood again, and his face became even paler. The aura he exuded became even weaker, like a flame that could be extinguished at any time. At the same time, Wu Yi's expression became even more painful. Her beautiful eyebrows were knitted together, and her body curled up even more. Even her consciousness became a little blurry. At this time, she was imprisoned in Lin Tian's arms, and her hands were tightly grasping Lin Tian's clothes, as if this would make her feel better. Lin Tian's body was cold and piercing, and he was about to lose consciousness. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Seeing Wu Yi in more and more pain, he naturally felt uncomfortable. At the same time, a glint of anger appeared in his eyes, and the eye of delusion became even brighter. "You two bastards!" He stared at the origin of holy light and origin of void that were colliding in Wu Yi's body, and couldn't help but let out an angry roar. Boom! In an instant, the remaining half of the reincarnation origin in his body suddenly shone brightly. In the origin, there were millions of immortal souls roaring and billions of gods and demons roaring, shocking the heavens. Then, the half of the reincarnation origin that he had sacrificed in Wu Yi's body also vibrated, and there were also roars that spread out, each of them exuding an incomparably terrifying aura, and the terrifying sound waves shook the eternal realms. At this moment, the entire sky shook, and strands of lightning intertwined in the sky, crackling. Then, in an instant, the origin of holy light and origin of void in Wu Yi's body trembled violently, as if they had suddenly gained consciousness. They stopped colliding and became extremely quiet, like two obedient children. Lin Tian stared at Wu Yi's body. At this time, he didn't even realize that there was a huge change in his eyes. Strands of mysterious Tao marks intertwined, and one could vaguely see the heavens and earth fluctuating and collapsing, intertwining with endless blood light. Blood gushed out of his mouth, and his eyes were cold. With half of the reincarnation origin as a guide, he guided out a ray of reincarnation origin light, enveloping the origin of holy light and origin of void that had calmed down in Wu Yi's body. With the reincarnation origin light revolving between the origin of holy light and origin of void, it evolved into a Taiji yin-yang line. One side circled around the origin of holy light, while the other side circled around the origin of void. It directly formed the origin of holy light and origin of void, and truly calmed the two origins. Then, he sprinkled more reincarnation origin light, using it to nourish the origin of holy light and origin of void. Then, he slowly guided his half of the reincarnation origin back into his body, fusing with the other half of the reincarnation origin in his body. "It's done." The corners of his mouth were stained with blood, and he whispered softly. The Taiji diagram was the most balanced and stable since ancient times. He used the reincarnation origin light to make the origin of holy light and origin of void in Wu Yi's body into the shape of the Taiji diagram. It was absolutely stable, and today's incident would not happen again. Even so, the two origin of king bodies might gradually fuse as a result, forming another kind of supreme origin. He held Wu Yi, his face extremely pale, and his eyelids seemed to weigh billions of pounds. He struggled twice, but finally closed his eyes, leaned against the big tree behind him, and fainted. Chapter 1034. The sky was still dark, and the night and moonlight shrouded the earth. In the mountains, the roars of the beasts were still deafening. Lin Tian leaned against the trunk of an old tree, traces of blood staining the corners of his mouth. Wu Yi leaned against his chest, sleeping soundly. Time passed unknowingly, and the roars of the demonic beasts in the mountains became somewhat weaker. Gradually, the night began to recede, until finally, the morning sun hung high in the sky, and the humidity and morning fog in the mountains slowly dissipated. A ray of gentle morning light shone on Lin Tian and Wu Yi, enveloping them. In the blink of an eye, another 15 minutes passed, and the sunlight shining on them became even gentler. Wu Yi's eyelids twitched, and she slowly opened her eyes. She discovered that her hands were currently grabbing onto someone else's clothes. In front of her was a man's chest, and a strong arm was wrapped around her body. She raised her head and saw Lin Tian's face. The trace of blood at the corner of his mouth was still obvious, and his face was pale. Suddenly, she remembered what happened yesterday, and worry appeared in her eyes. She sat up straight. Because of her sudden movement, Lin Tian's body shook, and he let out a muffled groan in his sleep. His eyelids twitched a few times before he opened his eyes. Wu Yi's face was right in front of him. She was more beautiful than an angel, and there was obvious worry in her eyes. "Wu Yi," he called out softly. He was about to stand up, but just as he moved, he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. He felt as if all the bones in his body were about to fall apart, and the slightest movement would cause intense pain. Even his soul felt like it was about to shatter. Yesterday, he had helped Wu Yi to quell the chaos in the origin. He had succeeded, but the injuries he had suffered were not light. "Don't move." Wu Yi transmitted her divine will, and it was very gentle. A ray of light floated out and surrounded Lin Tian. At this time, she calmed down because she could see that Lin Tian was not seriously injured. She enveloped Lin Tian with her Emperor's light, helping Lin Tian heal his injuries. She paused for a moment and reached out to wipe away the blood at the corner of Lin Tian's mouth. "Why are you so foolish? If you die, would it be worth it?" Her movements were very gentle. After wiping away the blood at the corner of Lin Tian's mouth, more divine light intertwined and entered Lin Tian's body. Lin Tianji felt his body being enveloped by a warm divine current. The pain from his body disappeared at a rapid speed. His essence, energy, and spirit also became stronger bit by bit. She looked at Wu Yi and grinned. "If little Z is in trouble and you want to save her, you have to risk your life. At that time, will you back down?" "No." Wu Yi shook his head. Lin Tiandao. "That's right, me too." Wu Yi's eyes flickered for a moment, but soon calmed down. Only a gentle emperor light enveloped Lin Tian. Lin Tian leaned back against the trunk of the old tree, allowing Wu Yi's emperor light to enter his body. Both of them were very quiet. "Thank you." After a while, Wu Yi said softly. As time goes by, the collisions between them become more and more intense. "Originally, I could suppress them for at most 10 years. I thought that I could live for at most 10 years. Her cultivation was extremely powerful. At this time, she had discovered that the two king body origins in her body had been pulled together by a new kind of origin power, forming a Tai Chi formation. It had become very stable, and even showed signs of merging into one. It indicated that the two would never collide again, and she naturally knew that the new power in the middle was Lin Tian's reincarnation power. She didn't look happy as she spoke. She was still quiet, but when she looked at Lin Tian, There was a slight fluctuation in her eyes. Lin Tian looked at her, seeing that she was so quiet even when saying such words, as if she didn't care about her own life and death. Lin Tian couldn't help but feel that this kind of silence at this time was really a little oppressive. Why are you so indifferent to your own life and death? Otherwise? Wu Yi looked at him. Her expression was very calm, and her divine will was very gentle. Strands of emperor light slowly and peacefully entered Lin Tian's body. Lin Tian opened his mouth, but he really didn't know what to say. He simply didn't say anything about this matter. After thinking for a while, he asked, "Why do you have two king physique origins in your body?" "I have had them since I was young," Wu Yi said. Lin Tian. He felt like he had asked a very unnecessary question because the essence of life was something that existed at birth anyway. He leaned back against the trunk of the old tree. Under Wu Yi's emperor light, his injuries quickly healed, and his essence, qi, and spirit rose to the peak. His pale face became as rosy as usual. Wu Yi stretched out her hands, grabbed his right hand, and was about to pull him up from the ground. "Found it!" A voice sounded in the distance. Wuxing Crocodile woke up early in the morning and didn't see Lin Tian and Wu Yi. It carried little AI and searched around the mountains for a long time before they found this place. When it saw Lin Tian and Wu Yi, it immediately approached them. However, in the next moment, Wuxing Crocodile's eyes widened. It was because it saw Wu Yi holding Lin Tian's right hand with both hands. "Did we come at the wrong time?" It looked at Lin Tiandao. "Why did we come at the wrong time?" Little AI said, "We're looking for Master and Big Brother. You're still young, you don't understand." Wuxing Crocodile curled its lips. Lin Tian. Wu Yi's expression was still very calm. There was no change in her expression. She didn't release Lin Tian in a hurry. After pulling Lin Tian up from the ground, she let go of his hand. Wuxing Crocodile looked at this scene. Its eyes widened a little. It sent a voice transmission to Lin Tiandao. "Boy, you're amazing. How did you manage to kidnap Miss Wu Yi so easily?" Lin Tian. "You think too much. It's not what you think at all," he replied with a voice transmission. "Master Big Brother." Little AI jumped down from Wuxing Crocodile's back. "Did you come out to watch the sunrise?" Lin Tian blushed with shame. Yes. He looked at Wu Yi next to him. Wu Yi didn't say much. He just nodded gently to little AI. In the mountains, the air was very good now. The group didn't stay in this place and quickly left. Just like before, the group still walked around the seventh heaven, heading to other places that they had never been to before. After all, this heaven is very vast. Even Nirvana realm powerhouses can't travel all over this heaven. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. On this day, while the group was walking on a road, Lin Tian's body suddenly trembled, and his abdomen heated up. He immersed his divine sense into his body, and in the blink of an eye, he found two very powerful auras in his life force. They turned out to be Wu Yi's holy light origin and void origin. He was slightly moved. That night, when I withdrew my own life force, I brought along a wisp of her holy light origin and void origin, which were contained in my life force. At this time, they separated from my life force? Chapter 10:35. As the two vast streams of divine powers gushed out to every corner of his body, Lin Tian felt his body grow hotter and hotter. The blood in his body started to boil involuntarily like a huge active volcano that was about to erupt. "I want to find a place to retreat for a few days," he said quickly. "Retreat?" Next to him, Wuxing Crocodile was a little puzzled. "Why do you suddenly want to retreat? What did you realize?" Almost at the same time, on the other side, Wu Yi looked at Lin Tian and clearly noticed his changes. Her gaze fluctuated slightly. She didn't say anything and didn't even make a single movement. She directly brought Lin Tian, the five-element alligator, and little AI along as they vanished on the spot. In the next moment, they appeared in a valley within a quiet and secluded old forest, and the environment was very hidden. Lin Tian and Wuxing Crocodile were both shocked. Such a movement was really amazing. It was as if she was teleporting through the universe. She's worthy of being feared by the 6 emperors at the peak of the 8th heaven of chaos. This Lord Crocodile didn't even feel the fluctuation of the air and changed a position. It's like changing space. Whooshing Crocodile exclaimed. Wu Yi was very quiet. She looked at Lin Tian and said softly with her divine thoughts, I'll guard here. Lin Tian naturally understood the meaning of Wu Yi's words. Obviously, she wanted to guard him. Thank you, he said. Without hesitation, he went directly to a yellow boulder about 10 feet away and sat down cross-legged. He activated the Sun Heart Sutra and began to refine the 2 vast divine powers in his body. At this time, with the Heavenly Master Wu Yi guarding here, he didn't have to worry at all. Buzz! For a time, a faint golden divine light intertwined on the surface of his body. Then it slowly became blazing. The aura emitted became stronger and stronger. His cultivation realm began to rise at an extremely fast speed like a fountain. This kid is going to break through again? So fast. It seems that it hasn't been long since the last advancement. Whooshing Crocodile stared. Wu Yi stood aside. Her gaze fell on Lin Tian. She just watched quietly. Her gaze and expression didn't change. Buzz! Outside of Lin Tian's body, the golden divine light grew thicker and thicker, and the aura it emitted also grew stronger and stronger. For a time, the surrounding space crackled as if it was about to collapse in the next moment. In the blink of an eye, 14 hours passed. Boom! Lin Tian sat cross-legged on the large rock. An astonishing gale swept out, directly breaking apart a space. Whooshing Crocodile stared. 5th heaven of Wuzhen. Then, what surprised it even more was that Lin Tian's aura was still rising rapidly and did not stop. This still wants to rush to the 6th heaven of Wuzhen? It was shocked. In front of him, Lin Tian sat on a large yellow rock. The divine power formed by Wu Yi's origin of holy light and origin of void was too dense. It was unimaginably vast, like 2 oceans of divine power, causing his body to heat up more and more. He calmed his mind and focused. The Sun Heart Sutra circulated even faster, quickly refining and absorbing the 2 divine power in his body. He guided these divine power, sinking it into his flesh and blood, sinking it into his bones, and even into his sea of consciousness, into his God soul. While improving his cultivation, he forged his physical body, his sea of consciousness, and his God soul. Boom! Suddenly, the aura on his body skyrocketed again. The golden divine light almost turned into a beam of light that shot into the sky. This shocked Whooshing Crocodile, its eyes full of shock. This kid, what's going on? This doesn't seem to be the feeling of enlightenment. It's just a pure increase in cultivation and an increase in aura. This is what happened. The golden light on Big Brother's body is so beautiful. Little AI's eyes lit up. Wu Yi looked at Lin Tian, still calm. Buzz! Lin Tian sat on the large rock. The golden divine light wrapped around his body, becoming thicker, and more powerful. At the same time, his glabella also could not help but shine. In his sea of consciousness, the yin-yang lotus sea could not help but sway violently. Just like this, in the blink of an eye, a full 3 days passed. On this day, the aura outside Lin Tian's body skyrocketed again, from 5th firmament of enlightenment to 6th firmament of enlightenment. However, this was not the end. His aura was still rising. Until another 7 days passed, a violent surge of divine power once again rippled out from his body, directly shattering a large space behind him into pieces. 7th firmament of enlightenment. Whooshing Crocodile's eyeballs almost popped out. In 10 days, Lin Tian went from the initial 4th firmament of enlightenment directly to 7th firmament of enlightenment. This was simply shocking. This kid, what happened to his body? How did his cultivation suddenly soar so much? Its eyes widened even more. In front, the golden divine light outside Lin Tian's body was thicker. At this time, it finally stopped growing stronger and began to stabilize. The powerful golden divine light slowly became peaceful, and then Strands of it were absorbed into his body. He closed his eyes. After an hour, he slowly opened his eyes. Two rays of light flashed and disappeared. In an instant, the entire small valley became a little brighter. Seventh firmament of enlightenment, he muttered to himself. In 10 days, after refining the wisp of holy light origin and void origin that belonged to Wu Yi in his body, he clearly sensed his current strength. His cultivation had reached seventh firmament of enlightenment. His divine power had become thicker. His physique had become stronger. His sea of consciousness had become several times wider, and his soul body had also become several times tougher. He was much, much stronger than 10 days ago. At this time, he felt that his physique would not be worse than a person in the early stage of Nirvana realm. As for his combat strength, he was confident that he could be absolutely invincible under the Nirvana realm. He could even kill a half-step to Nirvana realm expert. This made him involuntarily turn his head to look at Wu Yi. He was so shocked that his eyes could not help but flicker. That night, when he withdrew half of the reincarnation origin, he brought out an insignificant wisp of Wu Yi's holy light origin and void origin. However, it allowed him to directly rise from fourth firmament of enlightenment to seventh firmament of enlightenment, rising 3 small levels in a row. Moreover, his divine power, physique, sea of consciousness, and soul all had a great improvement. How amazing was this? This is a heavenly master-level person. Just a small wisp of the origin aura has such a level of divine power. This, he thought to himself, his eyes full of surprise. Wu Yi met Lin Tian's gaze. Seeing that Lin Tian was looking at him, he thought for a moment and transmitted his divine thoughts. Congratulations, Lin Tian. He always felt that Wu Yi's expression when he said these 2 words after thinking for a moment was really a little cute. It's all thanks to you, he said. Wu Yi did not say anything and shook his head gently. This made Wuxing Crocodile feel a little strange. It looked at Lin Tian, then at Wu Yi, and then at Lin Tian. Kid, what are you two talking about? Why do I feel a little strange? It stared at Lin Tian and Wu Yi, quite puzzled and curious. Lin Tian glanced at it and said, nothing. The wisp of Wu Yi's origin aura in his body was completely refined. He even relied on that divine power to consolidate his Taoist foundation. At this time, he stood up from the yellow stone and jumped down. Wu Yi stood quietly by the side. Lin Tian knew that she did not like to talk, so he said, are we leaving here now? Or should I continue to walk along this world like before? Yeah, Wu Yi nodded. So Lin Tian didn't say anything more. After smiling, the group quickly left this place. The 7th heaven was extremely vast. He let Wuxing Crocodile lead the way. While accompanying Wu Yi, he sensed the existence of the sword's soul fragments in this heaven. They walked across mountains and rivers. In this way, more than 10 days passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, the group of people was walking on a large road. The divine sword in Lin Tian's sea of consciousness suddenly trembled slightly. Strands of rainbow light automatically intertwined, like water ripples, rippling towards the southeast direction of this place. Lin Tian's expression suddenly changed. He was too familiar with this kind of reaction from the divine sword. He immediately sensed the existence of a new sword's soul fragment. He shifted his gaze to the southeast of this place. His divine sense spread out in a straight line. After that, he saw a damaged mountain range in the distance. Broken mountains were connected to each other. The mountains were very steep, especially the broken mountain in the middle. The mountain was incomparably majestic, like a real dragon that had its body cut off. It was very shocking. The divine sword in his sea of consciousness was emitting a 7-colored radiance, pointing straight at the majestic broken mountain. Found it, his eyes lit up. Wuxing Crocodile saw his expression and asked curiously, boy, why are your eyes suddenly shining? It's nothing. Lin Tian shook his head, took a deep breath, and said to Wu Yi and Wuxing Crocodile, let's change direction. Let's go to the east of this place first. Boom! Suddenly, 5 very powerful fluctuations of divine power appeared not far away, directly interrupting his words. In the blink of an eye, 5 old men came close. All of them were old, with deep eyes, and the aura around them was extremely domineering. When the 5 of them came close, their gazes fell directly on Lin Tian. They did not hide their murderous intent and coldness at all. Damn it, it's the Zhan family again. 5 half-step Nirvana realm cultivators. Whooshing crocodile cursed. Just by the unique aura around the 5 of them, it could tell their identities. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at the 5 of them. His gaze was also cold. Needless to say, the 5 of them from the Zhan family were here to kill him. Take him down, one of the 5 from the Zhan family said. The 5 of them were half-step Nirvana realm cultivators. Their gazes were cold, and they did not say anything. They attacked Lin Tian together. In an instant, 5 powerful fluctuations of murderous intent were vast and mighty. The 5 of them worked together, and their murderous aura covered the entire area, crushing everything. All the murderous aura shrouded Lin Tian. Facing such a terrifying murderous aura, Lin Tian was not afraid at all. He did not care at all. "Do you Zhan family want to be annihilated?" he said coldly. With just one step, he broke through the endless murderous aura that was swept out by the 5 of them. He raised his fist and smashed it. Boom! In an instant, the sky shook, and the murderous aura swept out by the 5 of them shattered. At the same time, Lin Tian's fist did not weaken at all. It landed directly on the chest of one of the 5. Instantly, the Zhan family member was blasted into pieces on the spot, and blood stained the sky. Chapter 1036. Blood splattered as one of the Zhan family members was smashed into pieces. The other 4 were visibly shaken as the coldness in their eyes instantly disappeared. A half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner was smashed into pieces so easily. What kind of terrifying physique was this? Ah! The Zhan family member, who was smashed into pieces, roared as his spirit flew out and quickly reformed his physical body. Lin Tian's expression was cold. How could he give him a chance? He immediately summoned the pure yang flame and covered his right hand as he slapped down. In an instant, the golden pure yang flame surged and instantly ignited the Zhan family member's spirit. In a few breaths, it was completely incinerated. Both his body and soul were destroyed. How is this possible? The other 4 Zhan family members' expressions changed drastically. The 5 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners had come to kill Lin Tian. Originally, they thought that it would be a foolproof plan. However, this outcome caused their hearts to turn cold. One of them had actually been killed in the blink of an eye until his soul was completely destroyed. Little fellow Lin has just completed a major breakthrough, and 5 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners have jumped out. Are you here to help him test his strength? Whooshing crocodile mocked. The 4 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners from the Zhan family trembled as their expressions turned ugly. Let's go. Let's go back and report to the old ancestor. One of them said. At their level of cultivation, it only took a short moment for them to understand that Lin Tian's strength was terrifying, and it was definitely not something that they could stop. Immediately, the 4 of them immediately retreated at a speed faster than when they had attacked. They were like 4 streaks of lightning as they fled into the distance. Tsk tisk. Whooshing crocodile stared at the 4 fleeing figures with a mocking expression. Lin Tian's gaze was indifferent as he took a step forward and directly blocked the 4 of them. Then, a golden metal fist smashed down on the spot. Boom! For a moment, the entire sky trembled. The terrifying fist power was like a meteorite falling from the sky, directly enveloping one of the Zhan clan's cultivators under the fist power. Facing this fist, the Zhan family member was horrified. You pop. The power of the punch seemed to be able to destroy everything. The cultivator from the Zhan clan was smashed into pieces on the spot. Only his soul escaped pathetically, fleeing into the distance in fear. He didn't even have time to reform his physical body. Lin Tian's expression was cold and indifferent as he took a step forward. Pure yang flame spread out and completely submerged this spirit. Ah! This person from the Zhan family screamed miserably. His divine soul turned into a person of flames. Even if he used all of his methods, it was useless. In the blink of an eye, he was completely destroyed. Instantly, the remaining 3 members of the Jean family were even more shocked. They looked at Lin Tian in horror. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian had killed another half-step Nirvana stage clansman. Lin Tian's gaze was indifferent as he approached the 3 of them. After a few days, I will personally make a trip to your Jean clan, he said coldly. He faced the 3 of them and clenched his right fist. His attack was still simple and direct as he enveloped the 3 of them with one punch. Now, with the help of Wu Yi's trace of holy light origin and void origin, he had consecutively advanced by 3 small stages and reached the 7th level of enlightenment. His physique, divine sense, and divine soul had all improved by leaps and bounds. His battle prowess had increased tremendously. Even if he didn't rely on holy weapons, he still didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure as he could suppress a half-step Nirvana stage cultivator with just his physique alone. With a boom, the surrounding void trembled from his punch. Then, with a series of cracking sounds, it collapsed and shattered. The 3 Jean family members roared as they unleashed their secret techniques and great path principles to meet Lin Tian's punch. However, they only resisted for a few breaths of time before they were smashed into pieces. All of them staggered back and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. It was also at this time that Lin Tian stepped forward and appeared in front of one of them. His golden iron fist pressed down once again. Roar! An ear-piercing dragon's roar reverberated in all directions. This time, he directly unleashed the Chaos Emperor's fist. The golden divine power evolved into a 10-foot-long true dragon and smashed the Jean family member into pieces. Even his divine soul was destroyed within it. He stepped on the yin-yang puppet and took a step forward. He appeared in front of the other Jean family member and pressed down with the Chaos Emperor's fist again. Roar! As he waved the Chaos Emperor's fist, a celestial phoenix appeared at the tip of his fist. It rushed down and drowned the Jean family member. Ah! With a piercing scream, the Jean family member's body and soul were directly destroyed. In an instant, only one of the 5 half-step Nirvana stage Jean family members was left. This kid's battle prowess is really abnormal. Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. With the cultivation of the 7th level of enlightenment, killing a half-step Nirvana stage cultivator was like cutting vegetables. This was indeed very terrifying. The last person from the Jean family trembled. In just an instant, 4 of their half-step Nirvana stage clansmen were killed by Lin Tian as if they were tofu. This caused him to be terrified to the extreme. At this moment, he stared at Lin Tian and could not help but retreat. Lin Tian's gaze was cold as he stared at this person. The true dragon's shadow and the celestial phoenix's shadow lingered at the tip of his fist at the same time. He pressed forward step by step. However, in the next moment, he stopped and tilted his head to look at the east. It was also at this moment that 3 powerful divine powers appeared in the east. 3 figures rushed to this place in the blink of an eye. They were 2 old men and a tall young man. The aura they exuded was extremely powerful, especially the young man in the middle. His black hair draped over his shoulders and his face was as sharp as a knife. His entire body was surrounded by chaotic light, as if he was the reincarnation of the chaos god. Enlanging! Lin Tian's eyes shot out 2 rays of cold light. Chaos, little bastard. He appeared again. Whooshing Crocodile sneered. On the other side, Wu Yi raised his head and glanced at Enlanging and the other 2, then looked away without the slightest change in expression. The last Jean family member, who was still alive, showed a look of joy at this time. Nephew! Seeing Enlanging appear, the Jean family member breathed a sigh of relief. Their Jean family and Enlanging family have been friends for generations. They have always been on the same side. Moreover, he knew how powerful Enlanging was. After returning from the 5th heaven, she had been cultivating crazily. Now, she had reached the peak of the 8th heavenly layer of enlightenment. She could be said to be invincible under the Nirvana stage. After calling Enlanging, his gaze fell on Lin Tian again. His eyes revealed viciousness and hatred. Nephew, Kill him quickly. Avenge Yuji. No. Let him live a life worse than... Clang! An ear-piercing sword sound rang out, directly interrupting the person's words. Lin Tian waved his hand and slashed out the 3 moves of Ling Tian. At the same time, the True Dragon Phantom and Immortal Phoenix Phantom rushed out together. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the Zhan family expert and enveloped him. Puff! The Zhan family expert couldn't dodge or block. In the blink of an eye, he was smashed into pieces, and even his divine soul was annihilated. Such a scene caused the expressions of the 2 old men beside and Lanjing to change. These 2 were naturally from the same clan as Enlan and Jingwei. They were the 2 grand elders of the Enlan family and were also at the half-step to Nirvana stage. At this moment, when they saw that Lin Tian was actually able to kill a half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner from the Zhan family so easily, shock surfaced in their eyes as their pupils involuntarily shrunk. And Lanjing's body was surrounded by chaotic light, and her eyes were cold. You have become stronger. Very good. Staring at Lin Tian, he moved. With every step he took, the great void trembled, and the chaotic light around his body became more tyrannical. The huge momentum seemed to suppress everything within a radius of tens of thousands of feet. Killing someone like you is worth it. He got the news from the Zhan family that Lin Tian had come to this heaven, and he had been sending people to investigate Lin Tian's whereabouts. Boom! As he took a step forward, the aura around his body became more and more tyrannical, like a vast galaxy of chaotic stars. Such an aura caused Wuxing Crocodile's eyes to narrow. He cursed, "This little bastard a few years ago, he was defeated in the 5th heaven. Could it be that he has been cultivating crazily these past few years? This aura is almost comparable to a Nirvana realm cultivator." The 2 supreme elders of the Enlan family were originally surprised by Lin Tian's strength. He could kill a half-step Nirvana realm powerhouse with a single strike, but at this time, seeing the aura of their clan's chaotic physique, the shock in their eyes dissipated. Although he is not weak compared to our clan's chaotic king physique, he is nothing. One of them said, "Of course." The other nodded. In front, with every step Lanjing took, the void would tremble, and chaotic light would interweave in all directions. In this regard, Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. Back in the 5th heaven, when your cultivation was 3 small steps higher than mine, you still lost. Now, you are only 1 small step higher than me, yet you dare to come in front of me like this? He said indifferently, and Lanjing's eyes were like torches, cold and piercing to the bone. If it weren't for that little bastard, the one who would be defeated would be you. As he said so, the aura around his body became stronger and more terrifying. Today I will cut off your head. Boom! As he spoke, the chaotic light around his body rushed up against the sky, transforming into a chaotic immortal river that directly propped up the king's territory. Lin Tian's expression still didn't change. Only a faint golden light lingered on the surface of his body. Today's battle situation is the same as a few years ago. There will be no change, and you will still lose. However, this time, your defeat will not be like last time. This time, you will die, and I will not give you any hope of survival. He said. As his words fell, his left hand shook, and a longbow appeared in his hand. The bow was intertwined with strands of sacred runes. It was the sacred weapon, Immortal Slaying Bow. Not far away, Wuxing Crocodile saw Lin Tian take out the sacred weapon and couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Kid, you are ruthless." Boom! Boundless sacred power surged. Lin Tian held the sacred weapon Immortal Slaying Bow, and divine power surged into it. The entire bow suddenly shone brightly. In an instant, Lanjing's expression changed, and his footsteps suddenly stopped. At the same time, the expressions of the 2 supreme elders of the Anlin family changed. Both of them were shocked. Sacred weapon? The 2 of them trembled violently. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He held the bow in his left hand and pulled the bowstring with his right hand. Golden divine power surged wildly, and the spiritual energy in the void suddenly swept over crazily. In the blink of an eye, a 3-foot-long golden arrow was condensed. "Try taking a few arrows," he said indifferently. Chapter 1037. The 3-foot-long golden arrow rumbled with an incomparably terrifying might. It directly pierced through a huge crack in the void, and the turbulence in the void surged out like a chaotic sea. The scene was extremely terrifying, and Longjing's expression changed. She could clearly sense the terror of this arrow. She supported herself with the chaos immortal river and quickly retreated. However, the 3-foot-long golden arrow was too fast. It was even faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived. With a whoosh, and Longjing's chaos immortal river shattered on the spot. Then, the golden arrow's momentum did not decrease. With the might of lightning, it pierced through her chest with a puff, bringing with it a large amount of Chaos King blood. It was a shocking sight. Jing-er! The 2 grand elders of the Anlin family, who came with her, trembled. And Longjing's body was covered in blood, but she did not die. Her vitality was still strong, and her injured body recovered in the blink of an eye. "After not seeing you for several years, you've become a coward. You don't dare to fight me head-on, and can only rely on an external object like a saint weapon." His eyes were ice-cold. In response, Lin Tian immediately sneered. "You and I are mortal enemies. Why must I fight you head-on? Why can't I rely on a saint weapon? Are you retarded? In other words, do you think you can defeat me in a head-on battle? Do you think your chaotic body is very strong?" He mocked. Such words instantly caused Longjing's face to sink. Lin Tian actually described her as retarded. On the other side, the 2 grand elders of the Anlin family were also angry. "If you don't dare to fight me head-on, then you don't dare to fight me head-on. Why do you need to find some high-sounding reason? Coward! Coward!" The 2 of them sneered. Lin Tian tilted his head, looking at the 2 of them. "This kind of provocation is too low level," he said indifferently. He drew his bow. As soon as he finished speaking, he drew his bow. The divine weapon Great Deity slaying bow released its divine might and shot out 2 golden arrows. The 2 golden arrows were as powerful as startled birds, piercing straight towards the 2 grand elders of the Anlin family. They were extremely fast. The 2 Anlin family's grand elders trembled fiercely. Facing the 2 holy arrows flying over, their backs instantly turned cold. On the other side, Longjing's expression was cold and gloomy. She supported the Chaos Immortal River and other great divine arts to defend against the 2 golden holy arrows. "Your opponent is me," a cold voice sounded. Lin Tian stepped on the duality puppet and blocked Longjing's path in an instant. Using the saint weapon grade immortal slaughtering bow, he unleashed the towering heaven sword manual. For a moment, a sonorous sword cry shook the sky. The might of the saint weapon was vast and mighty, forcing Longjing to retreat 10 meters. Ah! It was also at this time that shrill screams rang out. Not far away, the 2 grand elders of the Anlin family were struck by the 2 golden arrows shot by Lin Tian. Their bodies and souls collapsed together, and they were directly annihilated. These 2 golden arrows were launched by Lin Tian's saint weapon with the cultivation of 7th-stage enlightenment truth realm. How could an ordinary half-step nirvana realm powerhouse block it? Once hit, it would naturally lead to immediate death. "Serves him right." Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. Not far away, he was very quiet. She only stared at the few green trees in front of her, and did not care about the battle here. In the sky, Longjing's expression became even colder. Her killing intent was bone-piercing, and the chaotic light outside her body became denser and more violent. Lin Tian actually shot the 2 grand elders who came with her in front of her. Lin Tian smiled. The saint bow in his left hand shook, and the golden towering heaven sword light whistled out again, filling the sky. This sword light was a bit terrifying. After all, it was launched by a saint weapon. It could definitely kill an ordinary half-step Nirvana realm powerhouse. And Longjing's eyes were cold. With a rumbling sound, 100 feet of divine light rushed out from behind her, like waves of the sea, crushing the dense sword light slashed out by Lin Tian. Defying immortal 10,000 heavens? Lin Tian Lung smiled. Back in the fifth heaven, when he fought with Enlan Jing, he had seen the other party's divine technique. It was a peerless secret technique of the primal chaos celestial. The attacks launched by this technique were like rolling waves, one after another, and each attack was stronger than the last. It had an unpredictable ability. He snorted coldly, not caring at all. He held the bow in his left hand and pulled the bowstring with his right hand, directly pulling the bowstring into a half-moon shape. Boom! Suddenly, the surrounding spiritual energy surged and rolled over, once again condensing into a dazzling saint-killing arrow. He loosened his right hand, and with a whoosh, the golden saint arrow suddenly rushed out, like a true dragon proudly flying between heaven and earth. Chi! Enlan Jing's defying immortal 10,000 strikes was directly shattered, and then the saint-killing arrow showed no signs of stopping. Enlan Jing's eyes were cold, and the primal chaos immortal river was vast and mighty. At the same time, she launched the primal chaos great Tao, and then propped up a seal to block the arrow. Boom! The two collided violently. In the end, the saint arrow shot by Lin Tian exploded, turning into dense starlight and dissipating. This little primal chaos bastard is really extraordinary. She actually blocked the attack of a saint weapon launched by Lin Tian with his seventh sky of enlightenment cultivation. Whooshing Crocodile was slightly moved. Lin Tian's expression did not change. Enlan Jing was a chaotic body and had reached the eighth sky of enlightenment. At this cultivation level, under the circumstances of using the chaotic king's domain, the primal chaos great Tao, and a primal chaos great Tao at the same time, if she could not block an arrow from his immortal slaying bow with a half-moon bowstring, then the chaotic body was really unworthy of its reputation. Continue, he said indifferently. As his words fell, he pulled the bow again. This time, he directly pulled the bowstring to the shape of a full moon. Suddenly, the golden divine power in his body surged into the bow, and the spiritual chi in the surrounding space surged even more wildly. In the blink of an eye, another 3-foot-long golden arrow was condensed. However, the 3-foot-long arrow this time was extremely terrifying. Strands of blood water and lightning intertwined around the arrow, and it was at least 5 times stronger than the previous arrow. He aimed the arrow at Enlan Jing, and his right hand slightly loosened. Boom! In an instant, the void in all directions collapsed, and the golden arrow with blood-colored lightning rushed straight toward Enlan Jing. The whistling of the wind reverberated, as if there were ferocious ghosts screaming, as if there were gods and demons roaring, and the situation was extremely terrifying. Enlan Jing stepped on the chaotic king's domain, and her speed suddenly reached the extreme, and she dodged this arrow by a hair's breadth. However, in the next moment, his expression changed again. The golden arrow that he dodged actually turned around in the distance and shot back again. Crack! This returning arrow came even faster, and it directly shot Enlan Jing's high-grade divine weapon into pieces, and the debris splattered everywhere. Then, the arrow's momentum did not decrease, and the blood-colored lightning was still there. It shattered Enlan Jing's chaotic immortal river and chaotic great Tao, and like the 3-foot-long arrow that Lin Tian shot the first time, it directly pierced through Enlan Jing's chest. Puff! This arrow was much more terrifying than the first 3-foot-long arrow, and Enlan Jing's physical body exploded on the spot. Tisk tsk, good arrow. Whooshing Crocodile laughed. In the sky, Enlan Jing let out a low roar, and in the shattered flesh and blood, a talisman flashed, intertwining with the great Tao's chi. It contained strands of chaotic light that spread out like water ripples, and the shattered flesh and blood reformed into a chaotic body in the blink of an eye. Chaos Divine Talisman. Lin Tianling laughed. He did not make any unnecessary movements. He stood on the spot and drew the bow again, still pulling the bowstring to a full moon. For a moment, rumbling sounds could be heard. His divine power and the spiritual chi in the surrounding space condensed into an arrow, and its killing power was extremely terrifying. Boom! He released the bowstring, and the killing arrow with boundless divine might shot straight forward. And Longjing let out a low roar, and the chaotic imperial domain and chaotic great Tao were activated again. At the same time, she also propped up the strange phenomenon in her sea of consciousness to meet this arrow. The two collided violently, shattering large pieces of space in the surroundings. They were actually in a stalemate. Lin Tianwei narrowed his eyes. He had to admit that Longjing was really powerful. He pulled the bowstring to a full moon, and the other party was actually in a stalemate at this time. If it were anyone else below the Nirvana realm, they would have died instantly. Humph. He sneered and drew the bow again. He pulled the bowstring to a full moon again, condensing another terrifying golden killing arrow. He released the bowstring, and with a whoosh, the bowstring shot straight forward. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Longjing again. Together with the previous holy arrow, it directly shattered Longjing's chaotic imperial domain, the chaotic great Tao, and the strange phenomenon in her sea of consciousness. The bloody light exploded again, and Longjing collapsed, and blood stained the void. In her flesh, the chaos divine talisman buzzed and pulsed, quickly drawing the shattered flesh in the surroundings closer to the center. Lin Tianling snorted. This time his speed was extremely fast. He directly used the holy bow in his hand to slash out the 3 moves of Ling Tian. The golden sword light flashed and jumped, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the chaos divine talisman. It fell straight down, and with a swoosh, it shattered. And Longjing let out a low roar. Her killing intent was awe-inspiring. After condensing her physique, she stared at Lin Tian with an ashen face. She was extremely sullen. Originally, her battle strength was very powerful. She was almost comparable to an early-stage Nirvana expert. Below the Nirvana realm, she was almost invincible. But now, Lin Tian was attacking with a holy weapon. She was completely powerless and could not block that kind of holy might. "Next time we meet, I'll kill you," she said coldly and turned to leave. The chaotic imperial domain, the chaotic great Tao, the strange phenomenon in her sea of consciousness, and the defying immortal 10,000 levels. She had used all of her powerful techniques. Now, even the chaos divine talisman had been destroyed by Lin Tian's holy weapon. She knew very well that under such circumstances, she could not do anything to Lin Tian. If she continued to stay here, she would only become a live target for Lin Tian. She looked at Lin Tian with eyes full of killing intent. She directly took out the chaotic imperial domain. She turned into a dazzling, chaotic light. In the blink of an eye, she crossed more than 10,000 feet. Her speed was extremely fast. "You want to leave? You can't leave. I said earlier that I will kill you today," Lin Tianling said. He moved, stepping on the yin yang hua, and directly chased after her. His astonishing speed was not inferior to Longjing's at all. At the same time, he held the bow in his left hand and pulled the bowstring again with his right hand. It was still in the shape of a full moon, condensing an even more terrifying golden arrow. It was aimed straight at Longjing's head. Kill. Chapter 1038. The golden arrow was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had closed in on Longjing and pierced through her chest. With a puff, the king of chaos blood dyed the void. And Longjing's body exploded again. Blood, flesh, and bones splattered in all directions. Lin Tian's gaze was cold. He stepped forward and used the divine weapon-level deity, slaying bow, as a longsword. He slashed at Longjing's shattered body. With a clang, sword light flashed horizontally, destroying everything in its path. And Longjing growled. Before her body could regenerate, she supported the chaotic immortal river and attacked Lin Tian. Lin Tianling snorted. The divine bow fell, directly crushing the chaotic immortal river. It was also at this time that Longjing's body had been regenerated. Without any pause, the king of chaos spread out. In the blink of an eye, she crossed a mountain and rushed into the distance. Lin Tian's gaze was cold. The yin and yang ho flashed, and his speed was extremely fast. He also crossed a mountain in an instant and chased down. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had rushed far away. F***ck, they run so fast. Whooshing crocodile cursed. He turned to look at Wu Yi and whispered, Miss Wu Yi, should we follow them? Wu Yi nodded slightly. She took AI into the void and followed in the direction that Lin Tian chased after Enlanging. Whooshing crocodile flapped its wings and followed beside them. Boom! In front of them, divine powers surged. Enlanging supported the king of chaos's domain, resisting Lin Tian's arrow as she flew. Enlanging, are you used to running? Lin Tianling said in a low voice. As he said this, he drew the bow again. It was in the shape of a full moon, and another dazzling golden arrow was formed. Then, with a whoosh, he released the bowstring, and the golden arrow shot straight out. Boom! The large space trembled. Wherever the golden arrow passed, destruction followed. Enlanging didn't even look back as she summoned the celestial, defying 10,000 layers. Unfortunately, it was useless. The powerful divine technique was shattered by the arrow. Then, the arrow pierced through her body again, causing her to explode. Primordial chaos transformation. Enlanging bellowed. For a time, the surging laws of chaos transformed into an enormous ocean that surged out from his shattered body. It was a shocking scene. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. Without any unnecessary movements, he slashed down with his divine weapon, the deity slaying bow. Enlanging's ocean of chaotic laws collapsed on the spot, and it was completely obliterated by a single strike. Enlanging roared in a low voice. She used her divine soul to wrap around the pieces of flesh and moved 1,000 feet away. Then, a mysterious jade platform appeared and opened a space portal. Teleportation? Don't even think about it, Lin Tianling said. He was now in his peak condition. He drew his bow and shot out hundreds of scattered arrows like a rain of arrows. With a cracking sound, the teleportation platform that Enlanging had summoned was directly shattered, and the space door that had been pulled open immediately closed. Damn it! Enlanging bellowed. Her divine soul light intertwined and condensed into a physical body. Once again, she fled into the distance. At the same time, she forced out a drop of blood essence and shot a brilliant beam of light toward the sky. It exploded and turned into the two big words Enlan. Then, she continued to flee into the distance. Her speed was even faster than before. It was very shocking. Ask for help? Lin Tianling snorted. Today, no one can save you. He moved with the yin-yang puppet. His speed was extremely fast. At the same time, he drew the moon-shaped bowstring again. A 3-foot-long arrow instantly appeared. He locked onto Enlanging with his mind. He released the bowstring, and the 3-foot-long killing arrow rushed forward in the blink of an eye. This arrow was very powerful. This arrow was very fast. It carried streaks of blood-red lightning. In the blink of an eye, it caught up with Enlanging again. Puff! Once again, Enlanging exploded. Her blood dyed a large area of the void red. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and he stepped forward directly. Enlanging bellowed. Her divine soul scroll flew away with the minced flesh while reforming her physical body. Soon, she condensed her body again. After that, she didn't fight back because she knew it would be useless. She just concentrated all her power on the chaotic king puppet, which made her speed increase tremendously. In an instant, she stepped far away again. This little bastard can still survive after taking so many Saint arrows shot by Lin Tianling with the cultivation of the 7th tier of enlightenment. Her aura didn't weaken much. She's really tough. Whooshing crocodile followed from a distance and was a little surprised. Big brother is so powerful, little AI said. Wu Yi walked in the void, as calm as ever. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and he chased after Enlanging while stepping on the yin and yang rock. Using the Saint Bow as a sword, he slashed out towering heaven sword force that filled the sky. For a moment, the The clanging sound was endless. Although the towering heaven sword force that he slashed out with the Saint Bow wasn't as powerful as the full moon killing arrow, there were a lot of them. They slashed through like a swarm of bees, and Enlonjing was pierced into a sieve in an instant. Enlonjing's face was livid, and her body was stained with blood. She looked very embarrassed, but she didn't stop and continued to run away. For a moment, one ran away, and the other chased. Mountains and old forests were left behind. Soon, they appeared near a crowded avenue, which stunned all the cultivators on the avenue. My God, isn't that Enlonjing? She's actually being chased by someone of the same generation. She's actually running away? Some cultivators were shocked. Who in the heaven domain didn't know who Enlonjing was? She had the chaotic physique, which was extremely powerful. Many years ago, she was able to suppress the experts of the same generation and the older generation. But now, she was actually being chased by someone of the same generation. Who's that person? He actually killed Enlonjing with the chaotic physique and forced her to run away. I've never heard of such a powerful person in the same generation before. That's a saint weapon in his hand? It seems to be a saint weapon. Saint Bow. On the avenue, the cultivators stared at Lin Tian, and all of them turned pale with fright. One had to know that even the majority of Nirvana realm experts did not possess a sacred artifact at the level of a sacred artifact. This was because the materials required to forge a sacred artifact were too difficult to find. Even if one managed to find them, it was still extremely difficult to successfully forge a sacred artifact. Now, these cultivators saw Lin Tian chasing after Enlonjing with a Saint Bow. How could they not be shocked? Boom! Lin Tian chased after Enlonjing. He raised the Saint Bow in his hand again and shot out another Saint Arrow. With a whoosh, the Saint Arrow flew through the air and entered Enlonjing's back. It flew out from her chest, and blood filled the air. Enlonjing, you've been called an invincible legend of your generation by the people of this heaven domain. How do you feel now that you're being chased and forced to run away? Does it feel very uncomfortable? He mocked. Enlonjing was drenched in blood. Her hair was disheveled, and she was in an extremely sorry state. Her face was frighteningly pale, and the killing intent in her eyes was as violent as the sea. However, she didn't say a single word. She only stepped on the chaotic king pole and flew away. Lin Tian smiled. With a single step, he covered more than 1,000 feet. Using the Saint Bow as a sword again, he slashed out a large number of towering heaven sword force. Clang! An ear-piercing sword sound resounded through the sky, and the dense towering heavens sword force pressed down like a rain of swords. Each of them was horrifying, and each of them seemed to be able to easily kill a half-step Nirvana powerhouse, causing the nearby cultivators to be horrified. Is this the power of a saint weapon? Just a simple strike, and it already has such killing power. So terrifying. Some people trembled. At the same time, more people were shocked by Enlonjing's current state. She has the chaotic king body and is regarded as an invincible legend in the seventh heaven. However, at this moment, she was being chased by someone of the same generation. Her hair was disheveled, and she was fleeing in a sorry state. That's Enlonjing. She has the chaotic king body. Even if that person has a saint weapon in hand. Now, is the number one of the same generation going to change hands? Is the chaotic king body going to be killed today? Many cultivators trembled. Clang! In front of them, the dense towering heaven sword force pressed down, and Enlonjing suffered another great disaster. Half of her body was chopped into pieces, and blood stained the surroundings. This little bastard can really resist. He's not dead yet. In the distance, whooshing crocodile, who was following them, couldn't help but grit his teeth. Big brother will win. Little AI clenched her fists and said, Wu-E was still quiet, and he didn't say a word. He just followed them quietly. Buzz! In front of them, the spiritual energy in the 10-square space suddenly boiled like lava, and an extremely violent aura intertwined. Lin Tian pulled the Saint Bow, and it was in the shape of a full moon again. This time, He added a wisp of his great Tao Law into it. For a time, there was a rumbling sound as the entire sky lost its color. Lightning fell one after another, creating a miniature rain of lightning on the holy bow disk. Such a scene immediately shocked a large group of cultivators nearby. All of them couldn't help but tremble, and their faces turned pale. This kind of killing momentum was truly terrifying. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He released the bowstring in his right hand, and the killing arrow rushed out, bringing with it a dense lightning rain that collapsed in all directions. This arrow contained his great Tao Law, and it was even more powerful, even faster. With a poof, it pierced through Enlongjing again. Enlongjing couldn't help but scream this time. Her body exploded, and much of her soul was shattered. It was extremely miserable. Again, Lin Tianling said. He drew the bow again, infusing it with golden divine power and laws of the great Tao. Another terrifying killing arrow of Tao laws condensed, and another dense bolt of lightning fell from the heavens, carrying a destructive might, shooting straight towards Enlongjing. Suddenly, the large space collapsed, and even the ground cracked. Sand, dust, large rocks, and plants were all swept into the sky. "How dare you?" Suddenly, a cold voice sounded. A tall figure flashed from the distance, and in the blink of an eye, he stepped here. It was an old man in a golden robe. His eyes were as deep as black holes, and it was terrifying to the soul. He stepped here and stood in front of Enlongjing, and with a slap, he shattered the killing arrow of Tao Law that Lin Tian shot at Enlongjing. Suddenly, the nearby cultivators were all shocked. This is Nirvana Realm Powerhouse. It seems to be, it's the ancestor of this generation of the Anlin family. Some cultivators trembled. At the same time, Lin Tian's eyes turned cold. He stared at the golden-robed old man, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Previously, Enlongjing shot out a special divine light, and the two words Anlin were reflected in the sky. At that time, he guessed that the other party was asking for help. Now, it seemed that he was right. The old man who stepped over had an extremely similar aura to Enlongjing. He was definitely the ancestor of this generation of the Anlin family, and his cultivation was at the second level of the Nirvana realm. The old man of the Anlin family has jumped out. Whooshing Crocodile sneered. Chapter 1039. As the Anlin family's ancestor attacked, the turbulent void shattered inch by inch, and the giant hand covered Lin Tian entirely. For a moment, the void around Lin Tian was confined, and even the air seemed to have stopped flowing. And this was only due to the strength of his physique. It was horrifying. This is over. No one below the Nirvana realm can block such a powerful physique attack. All the cultivators' hearts trembled. With a rumble, the Anlin family's ancestor's giant hand really fell, pressing down on Lin Tian's head, and the air hummed. Lin Tian's expression didn't change at all. He clenched his right hand into a fist and met the opponent's giant hand directly. He didn't fear the opponent in a pure physical confrontation, and he directly used his full strength in this punch. Dong! For a moment, the sky trembled violently, as if there was an explosion of thunder. The power of the fist caused all of the nearby cultivators to pale in fright. Even the patriarch of the Anlin family was shaken. Then, in the next moment, Lin Tian's iron fist and the Anlin family's ancestor's giant hand collided. Bam! With a boom, the surrounding space collapsed. The Anlin family's ancestor trembled violently and was directly smashed several meters away. A few clear cracks appeared on the giant hand that pressed down on Lin Tian, and bright red blood floated out and sprinkled in the void. How is this possible? He seems to be in the Enlightenment realm, but his physique can actually compete with a Nirvana realm cultivator. He actually injured the Anlin family's Nirvana realm ancestor. Even the barbarian king physique, which is known as the strongest physique, isn't this exaggerated? This place, all the cultivators were shocked. Lin Tian actually injured a second-stage Nirvana realm cultivator with one punch. Enlongjing had already recovered from his injury, And at this time, he also revealed a shocked expression. He had the chaotic king physique, and his cultivation was at the 8th stage of the enlightenment realm, but he didn't have the confidence to injure a 2nd stage nirvana realm cultivator with one punch, because the nirvana realm was already the 8th major realm on the path of cultivation, and the gap between it and the enlightenment realm was too great. Lin Tian was now at the 7th stage of the enlightenment realm, and there were 4 minor realms between him and the 2nd stage nirvana realm ancestor, including the gap between the enlightenment realm and the nirvana realm. But under such circumstances, Lin Tian injured their ancestor with one punch. Even the Wuxing crocodile couldn't help but stare. This guy. It always knew that Lin Tian's physique was abnormal, but at this time, it was still a little surprised. After all, the gap between the 7th stage of the enlightenment realm and the 2nd stage of the nirvana realm was too great. Lin Tian, with his cultivation at the 7th stage of the enlightenment realm, injured the 2nd stage nirvana realm ancestor with one punch, which was really a little shocking. Only Lin Tian himself knew what was going on. First, he had the strongest reincarnation king physique. Second, he had experienced too many destructive heavenly tribulations. Third, and most importantly, he had refined a trace of the holy light origin and void origin of Wu Yi, who was at the celestial master level not long ago, and used it to refine his flesh and bones, causing his physique to have an earth-shattering change. The effect was even more shocking than that of dozens of enlightenment realm heavenly tribulations. Boom! The ice-cold divine energy rippled out, going against the sky, causing all the cultivators here to tremble fiercely. In the sky, the divine light around the Amlin family ancestor's body became even stronger, and the crack on his large hand was repaired in the blink of an eye. The gaze he used to stare at Lin Tian became even colder, even more icy. He was a dignified 2nd stage nirvana realm expert, but his arm was actually injured by a single punch from an enlightenment realm cultivator, almost shattering. Moreover, this was seen by many cultivators. This was an absolute humiliation. Junior! His voice was ice-cold, and the aura on his body surged like a volcano, surging, rushing against the heavens, vast and mighty in all directions. In just an instant, several different great Tao laws rushed out from his body, and terrifying Tao radiance covered all directions and 8 desolates. Within a radius of several hundred feet, every inch of the void was trembling because of this Tao radiance. Great Tao of fire, great Tao of collapse, great Tao of corrosion. 3 different types of great Tao laws. It is said that after a cultivator reaches the nirvana realm, they can gradually begin to control several different types of great Tao laws. This is actually true. All the cultivators in the surroundings were shocked. Lin Tian's gaze turned cold. The other party had brought out several types of great Tao laws, and in an instant he felt a huge threat. Patriarch Amlin's eyes were like swords, and several types of great Tao surged. The entire sky was trembling as he pressed down on Lin Tian. Don't move. A zither-like voice floated in this space. Wu Yi transmitted her divine sense not far away. It was gentle and pleasant to the ears. In an instant, Patriarch Amlin felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The divine power and great path precepts outside his body were annihilated. Cold sweat flowed down his forehead, and his pupils could not stop twitching. Following the voice, his trembling gaze landed on Wu Yi. Yu, staring at Wu Yi, Patriarch Amlin trembled even more violently. His lips couldn't help but tremble, and cold sweat kept flowing down. The nearby cultivators couldn't help but be puzzled when they saw Patriarch Amlin's expression. They all followed Patriarch Amlin's gaze and saw Wu Yi at the side. All of a sudden, these people were all visibly moved. So beautiful. Did she walk out of a painting? Even a fairy can't do much, right? Is she really human? Many cultivators were stunned. It had to be said that Wu Yi was really beautiful. Even describing her as devastatingly beautiful would make people laugh. She stood there. Even though there was no expression on her face, she still made everyone pale in comparison. These cultivators were shocked by Wu Yi's peerless beauty, but then they all revealed puzzled expressions. This was because when Patriarch Anlin stared at Wu Yi, the fear in his eyes was too obvious, making these people feel strange. Why does the Anlin family's patriarch seem to be afraid of her? It seems, I think so too. But the aura around this girl's body doesn't seem strong at all. How could the Anlin family's patriarch, who's at the second heaven of nirvana, be afraid of her? The cultivators were even more puzzled. Even Enlonjing was moved. She could tell that the patriarch of her bloodline was afraid of Wu Yi. However, he wasn't an ordinary person after all. He immediately realized that Wu Yi should be an extremely powerful existence. When the two words "don't move" were transmitted, it should be some kind of pressure that targeted their clan's patriarch. Only their clan's patriarch could sense it. And to be able to make their clan's nirvana patriarch this scared, at the very least, she had to be a half-step emperor. This made his pupils contract again. Not only did Lin Tian have a holy weapon by his side, there was actually such a powerful person. Patriarch Anlin's body trembled. At this time, he stared at Wu Yi, trembling even more fiercely. More cold sweat trickled down his forehead. Just now, when Wu Yi transmitted the two words "don't move," he clearly felt a wave of emperor might from Wu Yi's body. Moreover, it was an extremely terrifying emperor might. It was as if the boundless universe revolved around Wu Yi's body, terrifying and horrifying. He looked at Wu Yi in horror. At this time, other than the word "you," he couldn't say anything else. It was also at this time that with a whoosh, Lin Tian moved. The duality puppet flashed, directly bypassing Patriarch Anlin. Using the holy bow as a sword, he used the high heaven sword scripture to slash at Enlonjing. Kung. Immediately, clanging sword sounds rang out, piercing everyone's eardrums until they felt waves of pain. Patriarch Anlin's expression immediately changed. He hurriedly turned around, raising his hand to grab Lin Tian. "Junior, you better stop." I said, "Don't move." Wu Yi's voice rang out. Her voice was very soft, as if she didn't even have any strength. However, it made Patriarch Anlin tremble fiercely again, almost falling down from the void on the spot. "Old brat, you better obediently stay here. Don't think of using your seniority to bully Bratlin. Otherwise, I'll destroy you." Whooshing Crocodile sneered. It was also at this time that Lin Tian rushed in front of Enlonjing, and dozens of high heaven sword scriptures slashed out from the holy bow. Enlonjing's face was ashen, and she used the chaos celestial river to meet the attack. Boom! The two collided violently, exploding into a sky full of light. Then, Enlonjing was directly swept far away. "You're done for," Lin Tianling said coldly. Enlonjing was hit by his holy arrows more than 10 times in a row. Now, although she wasn't dead, she was already at the bottom of the valley. He could clearly sense this. He stared at Enlonjing, who was flying out, and his feet flashed, directly stepping in front of her and smashing down with his holy bow like a staff. Poof! Blood splattered, and Enlonjing was smashed into pieces on the spot. "Ah!" Enlonjing roared, and the broken pieces of flesh blossomed with blazing chaotic light, and in the blink of an eye, she reformed her physical body. However, Lin Tian was right beside her, and in an instant he stepped in front of her again, clenched his right hand into a fist, and directly punched down. Dong! How strong was his body now? He could even injure second-stage Nirvana cultivators. Enlonjing exploded in the void with a single punch, and the chaotic king blood splattered everywhere, causing Enlonjing's aura to weaken greatly in an instant. Enlonjing roared, and the broken pieces of flesh flew out wildly, and waves of blood rolled, quickly reforming a new body. "You have no chance," Lin Tianling said. At such a close distance, he didn't give Enlonjing the slightest chance to reform her physical body. He directly pulled the holy bow to the full moon and shot out an arrow. Pooh! Pu. Enlonjing's reformed body exploded again, and almost completely turned into a bloody mist. Jing-er! The Anlin family's patriarch's expression changed. His right hand moved slightly, and he couldn't help but want to attack. "Old boy, The supreme existence on our side has already warned you. Don't move recklessly. If you move again, die. Whooshing crocodile threatened. This caused the Anlin family's patriarch to tremble, and his movements instantly became sluggish. And Longjing's flesh was completely destroyed, but her powerful spirit was not destroyed. She let out a sullen roar. If you don't have a holy weapon, what are you? You can only lose miserably in my hands. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. Without a holy weapon, you still can't defeat me, and the outcome won't change at all. The instant his words fell, he directly propped up the reincarnation diagram. At the same time, the laws of the great Tao surged together, and in the blink of an eye, formed a great reincarnation diagram. It mightily pressed down on Longjing, completely covering her undestroyed spirit. Die! And Longjing's spirit roared, and soul light shone brightly. However, it couldn't block the divine power of the great reincarnation diagram at all. I can't accept this. I should... Poof! The great reincarnation diagram crushed over, destroying everything, and directly shattered her spirit, completely erasing her from the world. Chapter 1040. And Longjing's soul shattered, chaotic blood floating in the air, bit by bit dazzling, making everyone's expressions change. That in Longjing, she was actually... Everyone's hearts trembled as they stared at Lin Tian in shock. And Longjing's talent was unparalleled. She was known as an undefeatable legend in her generation. She even had the primal chaos physique, a physique that could allow her to enter the Emperor realm even if she matured normally. But now, such a person who was destined to become an emperor was actually killed by Lin Tian. Jing! Jing-er! Jing-er! The Anlin clan's ancestor trembled. His eyes instantly turned red, filled with wisps of blood. Their Anlin family had gone through endless years to produce an exceptional genius. His aptitude was heaven-defying, and his constitution was chaotic. In the future, he would definitely become an imperial emperor, able to push their Anlin family to incomparable heights. But now he died just like that. Everything had turned into bubbles. Lin Tian's gaze was indifferent. He stared at the Anlin clan's ancestor with killing intent in the depths of his eyes. He really wanted to kill the Anlin clan's ancestor right now. Although he wasn't a match for the Anlin clan's ancestor, he believed that as long as he asked, Wu Yi would definitely help him. However, he paused for a moment and ultimately didn't do so. This wasn't because he was soft-hearted. Earlier, the Anlin clan's ancestor directly attacked him. It was impossible for him to be soft-hearted. He just didn't want to ask Wu Yi to help him kill someone. He coldly glanced at the Anlin clan's ancestor and walked past him, heading in the direction of Wu Yi and Whooshing Crocodile. The Anlin clan's ancestor's eyes were bloodshot. When Lin Tian walked past him, his fingers twitched. The killing intent in his heart was as vast as the sea. He wanted to make a move against Lin Tian. However, in the end, he didn't do so, and Longjing's death made him hate Lin Tian to the core, and he wanted to grind Lin Tian's bones to dust. However, he still had a trace of reason left in him. He knew very well that he couldn't hurt Lin Tian because the terrifying Wu Yi was standing right there. Moreover, even if he was lucky enough to kill Lin Tian while Lin Tian was passing by, he would still die after that. Because killing Lin Tian would absolutely enrage Wu Yi, and the fury of a terrifying emperor was absolutely not something he, who was at the second level of Nirvana realm, could endure. So much so that once he did that, it was extremely likely that their Anlin clan, which had been passed down for countless years, would be directly erased from the world. Therefore, he did not dare to make a move against Lin Tian. Lin Tian walked past Patriarch Anlin unscathed and soon arrived beside Wu Yi and Whooshing Crocodile. "Big brother," little AI shouted. Lin Tian smiled at little AI and nodded at Wu Yi. Because he knew that Wu Yi didn't like to talk much, he took the initiative to speak after a pause and said, "This place is done. Let's go." "Oh, we have to return to our previous position." Wu Yi nodded lightly. Just like last time, he didn't move at all, and there wasn't even a ripple of divine power. In the next moment, he disappeared with Lin Tian, whooshing crocodile, and little AI, causing a group of cultivators nearby to be shocked. What's going on? Why did they suddenly disappear? Did they use a spatial teleportation platform? I don't think so. A group of cultivators widened their eyes. Many cultivators looked around, but in the end, they couldn't find anything, only shock in their eyes. Ah! An angry roar sounded in front of them. It was Patriarch Amlin, and he was about to go mad with hatred. His voice caused the nearby cultivators to tremble, and they couldn't help but look at him. Then, they all remembered that Lan Jing with the chaotic physique had been killed. The chaotic physique has fallen. This time, the Amlin family could be said to be. Someone muttered in an extremely low voice, but then he shut his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. This was because the Amlin family's patriarch was here, and they were afraid of angering the Amlin family's patriarch. Ah! Patriarch Amlin's roar shook the mountains, and the nearby void was directly shattered by the sound waves. In a broken mountain range, Lin Tian, Wu Yi, whooshing crocodile, and little AI appeared out of thin air. Whooshing crocodile's eyes widened, and then he looked at Wu Yi and muttered in a low voice. He silently shifted space again. At the side, Lin Tian's expression changed. This is previously before the 5 experts from the Zhan family and Lan Jing attacked. The divine sword in his sea of consciousness reacted, and he sensed the location of the new sword's soul fragment, and it just so happened that it was here. Originally, he and Wu Yi had said that they would turn back the way they came from, which was to turn back to the place where the 5 members of the Zhan clan, Lan, and Jing Sha were at when they arrived. Moreover, they wanted to fly back on their own. However, they did not expect that Wu Yi would actually directly bring them along and perform the great spatial movement like the last time. Moreover, it actually directly brought them to this place that he wanted to come from. He tilted his head and looked at Wu Yi. When he saw that Wu Yi was still very quiet, he knew that when he looked in this direction previously, Wu Yi must have noticed his gaze and knew that he wanted to come here. So she directly moved to this place. This made him feel a little touched. Although Wu Yi was usually very quiet and didn't seem to care about anything, she seemed to be very attentive. It was as if everything around her never left her sight. What's wrong? Wu Yi saw that Lin Tian had been staring at her for a long time, so she couldn't help but ask. Her voice was as gentle as ever. No, nothing. Lin Tian shook his head. Buzz! Suddenly, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness trembled slightly, and strands of 7-colored light rippled out like ripples, pointing directly to the magnificent broken mountain in the middle of this damaged mountain range. Suddenly, his expression became serious, and he immediately turned his head to look at the broken mountain. He said goodbye to Wu Yi, whooshing crocodile, and little AI, and directly stepped forward. His speed was not slow, and this place was very close to the broken mountain, so in just a moment, he appeared beside the broken mountain. When he came close to the broken mountain, this broken mountain seemed even more magnificent. The steep, strange stones were everywhere, and the broken mountain was like the dragon body of the true Dragon Emperor. Buzz! At the bottom of his sea of consciousness, the divine sword trembled again, and a sword hummed in his sea of consciousness. 7-colored light overflowed, pointing directly to the bottom of the broken mountain. He lowered his head and opened his divine eyes of illusion breaker. At the same time, strands of 7-colored light in his sea of consciousness intertwined into his eyes. He looked at the bottom of the broken mountain, more than 5,000 feet deep, and then he saw a fist-sized 7-colored light source. In an instant, his eyes were intertwined with a bright light. He finally found the 7th sword's soul fragment. I'll go down, you guys wait for me here, he said to Wu Yi and the others. Chapter 1041. The fist-sized sword's soul fragment was located 5,000 feet below the broken mountain. It shone with a 7-colored radiance, and because of the vibration of the divine sword in Lin Tian's sea of consciousness, it moved on its own and floated to Lin Tian's chest as if it had a mind of its own. Lin Tian's eyes flashed. After a pause, he stretched out his right hand towards the colorful light source. Buzz! The colorful light source seemed to have its own consciousness. It jumped slightly and went directly into his right hand. Then, in the next moment, the seven-colored light followed his body and appeared in his sea of consciousness in the blink of an eye. It went directly to the divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness. It paused slightly, like a seven-colored fairy, and instantly merged with him. Suddenly, the divine sword trembled, and its aura became stronger. The colorful light around the sword body became brighter. That thing again? This kid, whooshing crocodile, was surprised. Although it wasn't the first time it saw Lin Tian find a sword's soul fragment, it still had a strange expression on its face. For the first time, a hint of doubt flashed in Wu Yi's eyes. He stared at Lin Tian for a long time, then calmed down again. Buzz! At the bottom of Broken Mountain Range, Lin Tian stood still as the rainbow-colored radiance released by the divine sword in his sea of consciousness drifted to every corner of his body, bringing with it a shocking amount of spiritual qi, causing him to feel as if his entire body had turned soft and comfortable. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. Then, he activated the Sun Heart Sutra and began to quickly refine the seven-colored light that was floating to various parts of his body. This caused his cultivation to begin to rise again, and the aura he exuded increased greatly. The seventh heaven was boiling at this time. The news of Enlongjing's death spread in all directions. What? Enlongjing was killed by a person of the same generation? How is that possible? That's the king body of chaos. It seems that no one in the same generation can block a few of his moves. Even many of the older generation powerhouses are not his opponents. How could you be killed by a person of the same generation? It is said that the man of the same generation as Enlongjing killed Enlongjing ruthlessly with a holy weapon. Saint weapon. In this region of heaven, the three top forces did not have a saint weapon, but the person who killed Enlongjing actually had a saint weapon. This, in a small restaurant, many cultivators were whispering to each other and discussing animatedly. All of them had shocked expressions on their faces. A saint weapon is terrifying, but don't think that person killed the primal chaos body with just a saint weapon. According to others, the Enlon family's ancestor went there, and that person injured the Enlon family's Nirvana realm ancestor with just a single punch. In the end, he even killed Enlongjing with the chaotic body right in front of the ancestor of the Enlon family. What? Killing Enlongjing in front of the Enlon family's ancestor? That person has reached the primal chaos realm? Not really. It is said that the person's cultivation is slightly lower than Enlongjing's. He is at the 7th level of Wuzhen. Then how can you kill Enlongjing in front of the Enlon family's ancestor? This is simply impossible. A person at the 7th level of Wuzhen, no matter how talented he is, even if he has a saint weapon, it is impossible for him to stop a Nirvana realm expert. The Enlon family's ancestor would not watch his family's peerless king physique get killed by a saint bow right in front of him, right? Yes. Many people were puzzled. Because, someone said in a small voice, because it is said that the person who killed Enlongjing was accompanied by an absolutely beautiful woman. With just a few simple words, the Anlin family's ancestor was stunned, not daring to move at all. It is said that she is at least at the half-step emperor level, or even possibly a true emperor level expert. What? That person has a half-step emperor realm expert, or even a true emperor realm expert backing him. Hearing this, all the cultivators were shocked. 7th heaven, northwest position, Zhan family. The Zhan family was located in the middle of an immortal mountain. There were many palaces and pavilions, and the style was extremely extraordinary. What? A trembling voice sounded in one of the main palaces of the Zhan family, mixed with unconcealable panic. In the main palace, the Zhan family's patriarch, several grand elders, and even the Zhan family's ancestor of this generation were all present. Their expressions were not good. The 5 half-step Nirvana realm experts they sent to kill Lin Tian were dead. Then, before they had time to be angry, they heard another rumor. Enlongjing was killed by Lin Tiansha in front of the Enlon family's ancestor. The Enlon family's ancestor did not dare to move at all. And the reason was that there was a half-step Emperor Realm expert beside Lin Tian, or even a true Emperor Realm expert. How can this be? That beast actually has a half-step Emperor Realm expert beside him, or even a true Emperor Realm expert. Among the big shots of the Zhang family, many of them were trembling. Their Zhang family had sent experts to kill Lin Tian again and again. They had crossed realms to kill him, ambushing and assassinating him. The grudge between them was too deep. Now that they heard that Lin Tian had a half-step emperor or even an emperor by his side, how could they not panic? One has to know that the strongest expert of their Zhang family was only at the early Nirvana realm. Any half-step Emperor Realm expert could destroy their Zhang family, and an Emperor Realm expert could wipe them out with a flick of a finger. If Lin Tian brought that powerful existence to their Zhang family, wouldn't their Zhang family face a great disaster? They might be directly wiped out. For a moment, the big shots of the Zhang family were in a mess, and their hearts were beating violently. Immediately go to the Enlon family and ask. Then we will make a plan. The Zhang family's ancestor of this generation said in a low voice. In a place extremely far away from the Zhang family, Lin Tian lived 5,000 feet under the Broken Mountain Range. The light outside his body was getting stronger and stronger. He circulated the Sun Heart Sutra, and strands of rainbow light entered his body. His cultivation was climbing up bit by bit, and the aura he emitted was getting stronger and stronger. Even his great Tao law was gradually getting stronger. He found the seventh sword soul fragment. The sword soul fragment contained a shocking amount of spiritual energy, and it contained pure great Tao immortal kernels. When these spiritual energy immortal kernels entered his body, it naturally brought him great benefits. This is going to break through again. In the void above the Broken Mountain Range, Wuxing Crocodile couldn't help but stare. Wu stood at the side and was very quiet. Lin Tian lived below the Broken Mountain Range. The aura outside his body was constantly getting stronger, and the great Tao law was getting denser. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. On this day, the rainbow light and golden divine light outside his body fused together, and his aura and Tao law had reached a peak. Then, with a rumble, a majestic aura rushed out of his body. Suddenly, a shocking hurricane swept out, and the impact shattered the surrounding soil layer. This hurricane was very powerful, and it raged wantonly under the ground. It only calmed down after a dozen breaths. On the Broken Mountain Range, Wuxing Crocodile opened his mouth. 8th level of enlightenment. At this time, Lin Tian slowly opened his eyes at the foot of the Broken Mountain Range. In his eyes, 2 bright divine lights flashed. 8th level of enlightenment. He muttered to himself. He only felt that the divine power in his body had become much stronger, and his divine sense and great Tao law had also become stronger. His combat strength had also made a huge improvement. This naturally made him very satisfied, and the depths of his eyes shone brightly. At this time, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness had already calmed down. Only the complex and mysterious patterns on the sword body were brighter and clearer. He still couldn't understand this, so he simply didn't care. After taking a deep breath, he stood up from where he was and appeared on the Broken Mountain Range in a flash. He came to Wu, Little AI, and Wuxing Crocodile. Motherf Astris Kerr, your cultivation speed is really as freakish as your master. You are indeed of the same origin. Wuxing Crocodile bared its teeth. Lin Tian had just ascended from 4th level of enlightenment to 7th level of enlightenment not long ago. Now, his cultivation had risen again and reached 8th level of enlightenment. This really surprised it and made it want to roll its eyes. Not bad, Lin Tian said. As he spoke, he looked at Wu Yi. Wu Yi was as calm as ever. When she saw him looking over, she looked at him without blinking. Her expression didn't change at all, and she didn't say a word. Lin Tian, this really made him feel a little embarrassed. He coughed twice and said to Wu Yi, let me think about it and see where I can take you. Kid, don't think about it. Go directly to the Jean family. The five elements crocodile opened his mouth and sneered. Now that you've reached the 8th heavenly layer of enlightenment, you can make a trip to the Jean family. You're always being chased by them. Let's also take the initiative this time and go directly to their door. With that said, it added, Lord Crocodile has an Ascension Divine pill that you refined before. With your current cultivation, after swallowing this Ascension Divine pill, your combat power will increase tenfold. It will be absolutely no problem for you to destroy the current Jean family. The Jean family previously crossed to the 5th heaven to hunt them down. They ambushed him and Lin Tian at the space-time portal of the 7th heaven for 3 years. After they failed, they continued to pursue them again and again, which naturally made him very unhappy. Lin Tian's eyes flashed suddenly. Then he glanced at Wuxing Crocodile. Are you willing to take out that Ascension Divine pill? Although he has now reached the 8th heavenly layer of enlightenment, it is impossible to kill a powerhouse at the early Nirvana stage. However, if he uses the Ascension Divine pill to increase his combat power tenfold, it will be easy to do. When has Lord Crocodile ever been stingy? Wuxing Crocodile said. Lin Tian suddenly smiled and narrowed his eyes slightly. Then, let's kill them, he said. He originally wanted to go to the Jean family in person to settle the grievances. At this time, Wuxing Crocodile said so. He naturally wouldn't hesitate. Immediately, he said something to Wu Yi. Wu Yi nodded slightly, and then the group walked towards the Jean family. Wuxing Crocodile was very familiar with the 7th heaven. He led the way, and it didn't take long for them to come to a continuous mountain range with magnificent palaces. The Jean family's land is here. Chapter 1042. Genius 1 second. Remember love go / little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Listening to Wuxing Crocodile's words, Lin Tian raised his head and looked ahead. Inside the Jean family's territory, there were palaces connected to each other. They were all magnificent, and there were even floating islands. The aura around them was exceptionally rich, and the aura around them was very magnificent. He narrowed his eyes slightly and said, Let's go. Arriving here, the group's pace was neither fast nor slow. It didn't take long for them to reach the Jean family's territory. Who is it? Outside the Jean family's territory, the disciples guarding the gate saw the group of people and immediately shouted. However, in the blink of an eye, the person saw the faces of the group of people. When he saw Lin Tian's face clearly, his face turned pale with fright. It's you. The person was terrified. At the same time, the other disciples guarding the gate outside the Jean family also saw Lin Tian. They all trembled in shock and fear. As the children of the Jean family, they naturally know that Lin Tian is someone their family has always wanted to kill. They know that Lin Tian is very powerful. In the past 10 days, the 7th heaven was shaken, and Lan Jing with the chaotic body was killed by Lin Tian, and there was even a half-step emperor by Lin Tian's side, which made Lin Tian even more terrifying. Now that they saw Lin Tian's group coming to their territory, how could they not be afraid? You and several people trembled. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent as he walked forward slowly. The Jean family's guards were all trembling. Seeing Lin Tian step forward, they didn't dare to stop him, and all stepped back. Lin Tian's pace didn't change. It didn't take long for him to step directly into the Jean family's territory. For a time, inside the Jean family's territory, the faces of the Jean family's children all changed, revealing a horrified expression. It's that person, the Jean family's children panicked. Love go little say W. Chew the enmity between Lin Tian and the Jean family is something these Jean family members are very clear about. They also know how powerful Lin Tian is, and they have also heard about the recent rumors in the 7th heaven. At this time, Lin Tian came to the Jean family. These Jean family members naturally didn't think that Lin Tian came to their family for a chat. All of them trembled in fear. Whoosh! 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 Dozens of figures rushed out from the depths of the Jean family. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived in front of Lin Tian. Dozens of people, including the Jean family's ancestor, the surviving half-step to Nirvana stage elders, the current head of the Zhan family, and the Zhan family's Wuzhen elders, all had fearful expressions on their faces. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable panic. Little friend, the great emperor, greets the great emperor. Led by the Zhan family's ancestor, dozens of people all saluted Lin Tian and Wu Yi. More than 10 days ago, news of Lan Jing's death and the existence of at least a half-step emperor rank expert by Lin Tian's side spread throughout the seventh heaven. The Zhan family's old ancestor personally went to the Lan family's old ancestor to inquire about this matter. The Zhan family and the Lan family have been friends for generations. Although the Lan family's ancestor was extremely depressed because of the loss of the descendant of the chaos body, the Zhan family's ancestor still obtained a lot of information. There is an emperor beside Lin Tian. After that, the Zhan family's ancestor was terrified. When they learned about this, the other big shots of the Zhan family were even more terrified. They chased Lin Tian so many times and used all kinds of methods, but they only learned that there is an emperor standing beside Lin Tian. An emperor they actually chased after someone who has the support of an emperor again and again. With such a peerless existence by his side, if Lin Tian brought him to their Zhan family would definitely be destroyed. Thus, in these 10 days, the Zhan family's big shots were all on tenterhooks, terrified at every moment. At this time, when Lin Tian came to the Zhan family's big shots naturally sensed it at the first moment, running out together. Little friend, please forgive us. In the past, it was our descendants who were rude and offended you. Please forgive us. In the future, our family will not dare to offend you in the slightest. The Zhan family's ancestor faced Lin Tiandao. Little friend, please forgive us. The other big shots of the Zhan family also spoke, their bodies trembling slightly. Knowing that there is an emperor behind Lin Tian, these people's expressions were one of panic and fear. Lin Tian stared at these people and couldn't help but smile. Your Zhan family, when I was still in the fifth heaven, you sent people to cross realms to hunt me and my friends twice. After failing, you guessed that we would come to the seventh heaven. So you sent people to ambush us at the space-time portal of the seventh heaven for 3 years. After failing, you chased us several times in a row. Even half-step Nirvana experts were sent to hunt us down. You guys have tried to kill me time and time again. Now that you know I have an emperor rank existence by my side, you're scared. You just want to apologize and not offend me again. In this world, there isn't such a good thing, right? He said. Whooshing Crocodile sneered. Do you think Master Crocodile and Brat Lin can chase us for fun, without paying any price? The big shots of the Zhan family trembled, and their faces became more flustered. The Zhan family's ancestor glanced at Wu Yi, his body trembling slightly, and looked at Lin Tiandao. Little friend, what do you want to let go of my Zhan family? Whatever you want, just say it. As long as my Zhan family has it, we will take it out immediately. Even if my Zhan family doesn't have it, we will find it in the future and offer it to you with both hands. If you have anything you want my Zhan family to do, my Zhan family will definitely do it. Lin Tian had an emperor behind him, so the Zhan family's ancestor didn't dare to contradict him in the slightest. There was only fear in his heart. The other big shots of the Zhan family also echoed. They looked at Wu Yi in fear, and then their eyes fell on Lin Tian. Lin Tian looked at the Zhan family's ancestor and looked at the big shots of the Zhan family. He naturally knew that these people were really afraid of Wu Yi, not him. Looking at these people, his expression was still indifferent. Don't talk so much nonsense. Didn't you want to kill me? I came to your door. If you want to kill me, I will kill you. He said, you don't have to think that I will suppress your Zhan family with the power of an emperor-level existence. Although you have nothing to say if I do that, I prefer to solve my own problems. The grievances between us, I will settle them with your Zhan family. You clang. The ear-piercing sound of the sword reverberated. Lin Tian's clothes fluttered without wind, and a strong sword aura spread out in all directions. Such a strong sword aura made everyone, except for the Zhan family's ancestor, tremble. All of them felt their hearts palpitate. Wu Yi was very quiet. He brought little AI and slowly rose into the sky without saying a word. Brat catch! Whooshing crocodile through the transcendent supreme elixir that Lin Tian gave it to Lin Tian before flying into the sky with Wu Yi. In the blink of an eye, the two humans and one demon were far away from the Zhan family's territory. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He caught the transcendent supreme elixir that whooshing crocodile threw over and looked at the big shots of the Zhan family. Come, before you die, at least preserve some of your dignity as a cultivator, he said. Beside him, a sword gleam appeared on its own. It clanged and slashed towards the Zhan family's ancestor and the others. This sword gleam was not weak. Other than the Zhan family's ancestor, the other big shots of the Zhan family were shocked and quickly dodged. Young friend Yu Clang, beside Lin Tian, the sword gleam appeared again. It was even stronger and slashed towards the big shots of the Zhan family. Don't call me young friend. I am your enemy. I have nothing to do with the word friend, he said indifferently. The big shots of the Zhan family all had ugly expressions on their faces. They all dodged the sword gleam. However, many of the pavilions and halls were destroyed, and debris flew everywhere. Young friend, don't be too overbearing. The Zhan family's ancestor's face turned green. Lin Tian's expression was cold. The sword gleam appeared again. This time, it was even stronger and more shocking. It slashed towards the Zhan family's ancestor. With a cracking sound, the surrounding void shattered. You have chased after me so many times. You have chased me across realms and ambushed me at the space-time portal for 3 years. You even sent a half-step to Nirvana Realm Cultivator. Now, you say that I am overbearing? Are all of you big families and powers so shameless? Do you think that you are the only ones who can suppress and kill others? Do you think that when others retaliate, you are overbearing? He said. After he finished speaking, another sword gleam appeared and went straight for the Zhan family's ancestor. In an instant, the sharp sword aura sealed the Zhan family's ancestor and slashed towards his head. The Zhan family's ancestor raised his hand. Infinite divine light gathered in his hands. With one palm, he shattered all of Lin Tian's sword gleams. Young friend, don't go overboard. The Zhan family's ancestor looked at Wu Yi, who was far away. He gritted his teeth and said, I will give face to the great emperor behind you. I will not attack you. Otherwise, do you think you could defeat me? Lin Tian's expression was cold. He did not want to waste any more words with the Zhan family's ancestor. With a flash of his feet, he appeared in front of the Zhan family's ancestor. His golden iron fist slammed down mercilessly. Boom! This was a punch that he had unleashed with all his might. The terrifying might of the punch caused the space in all directions to collapse. Cracks appeared on the surface of the Zhan family, causing the expressions of everyone in the Zhan family to change drastically. They were all shocked by the might of the punch. Even the Zhan family's ancestor, who was in the Nirvana realm, had a drastic change in his expression. He quickly blocked the attack and met it with a punch of his own. Bam! The two fists collided in the blink of an eye. The space around the two fists shattered again. Then there was another shocking sound. The Zhan family's ancestor was forced back. Cracks appeared on his fist, and blood dripped from the void. Such a scene caused everyone in the Zhan family to be shocked again. In a pure physical collision, their Nirvana realm ancestor was defeated. He was forced back by Lin Tian, who was in the Enlightenment realm, and his fist was broken. Everyone in the Zhan family was shocked. The Zhan family's ancestor was also shocked. He had heard rumors that Lin Tian's physical body was terrifying. Back then, even the ancestor of the Amlin family was at a disadvantage. Hence, he did not hold back when he punched. Even so, he was still at a disadvantage. Clang! The sound of the sword rang. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He attacked again. This time, hundreds of towering heaven sword radiance rushed out from his body and slashed towards the Zhan family's ancestor. The powerful sword aura sealed every inch of space around the Zhan family's ancestor. The Zhan family's ancestor's face was ashen. He smashed Lin Tian's towering heaven sword radiance into pieces. He looked at Wu Yi, who was far away, and then looked at Lin Tian. He knew that Lin Tian would not give up today, no matter what. He immediately let out a low roar. Divine light surged around his body, and several types of great Tao laws were activated. His eyes were filled with malevolence and viciousness. Since you insist on attacking my Zhan family, then you shall die first. With a boom, he charged towards Lin Tian with boundless divine light. Chapter 1043. Violent divine power intertwined, and several types of great path precepts surged together. The Zhan family's ancestor exerted all his strength and directly sealed the space within a radius of a few hundred feet, not giving Lin Tian any chance to dodge. He wanted to kill Lin Tian with one blow. This fluctuation was so terrifying that Lin Tian, who had reached level 8 of Enlightenment Realm, instantly felt immense pressure. However, his expression did not change at all. He swallowed the Transcendence Elixir in his left hand. Boom! Suddenly, the aura outside his body skyrocketed, like an active volcano that had been dormant for hundreds of thousands of years erupting. The terrifying fluctuation caused the entire Zhan family to tremble. The Zhan family's ancestor just happened to arrive in front of Lin Tian at this moment. His expression changed drastically. This aura made him, who was in the Nirvana realm, feel a deep sense of powerlessness. Lin Tian did not say anything unnecessary. He raised his right hand and punched down. This time, he just casually threw a punch, but the result was extremely terrifying. It immediately tore apart the endless killing light that the Zhan family's ancestor brought out. Then, the terrifying power of the punch shattered the Zhan family's ancestor in the blink of an eye. Ancestor, the Zhan family's patriarch, and the others all had a change of expression. At the same time, the ordinary disciples of the Zhan family were also shocked and horrified. The Nirvana realm ancestor of their clan, who had attacked with all his strength, was actually blasted apart by a casual punch. His aura, how did it suddenly skyrocket so much? Everyone was horrified. In the distant sky, whooshing crocodiles sighed. This kid swallowed the Transcendence Elixir with his level 8 of Enlightenment Realm cultivation base to increase his strength by 10 times in all aspects. It's really terrifying. This aura, TSK, Big Brother is so powerful. Little AI, clench your little fist. Wu Yi was as calm as ever, like the surface of a still spring. There was a roar of anger in the Zhan family. The Zhan family's ancestor reassembled his body in the blink of an eye and stared at Lin Tian in shock and anger. Staring at Lin Tian, the old ancestor of the Zhan family, felt his heart skip a beat. The aura coming from Lin Tian was way too strong. At this moment, Lin Tian was way stronger than him. The old ancestor of the Zhan family felt a chill run down his spine as his internal organs trembled. Lin Tian's expression didn't change. With his cultivation of the 8th sky of enlightenment, he couldn't fight against a person of the Nirvana realm. However, after swallowing a divine elixir, it was different. Now his divine sense, physique, divine power, spirit, speed, and other aspects of strength had increased by 10 times. The ancestor of the Zhan family in the Nirvana realm was already weak and pitiful in his eyes. He looked at the Zhan family's patriarch and waved his left hand. The holy weapon, Deities' slaying bow, appeared immediately. This is a holy weapon. The expressions of the Zhan family members changed again. The old ancestor of the Zhan family trembled as he stared at Lin Tian. You want to do, Buzz? Lin Tian pulled the bowstring directly. An even more terrifying holy aura surged out and instantly interrupted the words of the Zhan family's patriarch. In an instant, spiritual energy surged from all directions. Together with his golden divine power, it surged into the holy bow. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into an extremely dazzling holy arrow of slaughter. The tip of the arrow was aimed straight at the Zhan family's patriarch. The Zhan family's patriarch's face instantly changed. Facing the holy arrow of slaughter that was aimed at him, the threat of death drowned him in the blink of an eye. Young friend, Please stop. I'll send you on your way. Lin Tiantan said coldly, interrupting the words of the Zhan family's patriarch once again. Then his right hand that was pulling the bowstring loosened. In an instant, there was a loud bang. The dazzling, holy arrow of slaughter flew out, like a meteor piercing through the sky. Its speed was extremely fast, and its power was terrifying. With a puff, it pierced through the chest of the Zhan family's patriarch. Then, it dragged the Zhan family's patriarch's body for more than 10,000 feet before it exploded with a puff. Even the divine soul in his body was shattered. In an instant, the Zhan family became dead silent. Not a single sound could be heard. After a few breaths, the group of Zhan family's grand elders and patriarch of the Zhan family finally reacted. Patriarch, the big shots of the Zhan family were terrified. Their clan's ancestor, a holiness of nirvana-level cultivator, was killed by a single arrow. They stared into the distance and then looked at Lin Tian. Every one of them was trembling, and this time, their trembling was even more intense. Young friend, spare us. Please forgive us. Young friend, have mercy. Let us go. The big shots of the Zhan family begged for mercy and fear. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. You kill me, and I kill you. It's fair and reasonable. If you want to live, you have to defeat me. He stood on the spot, not moving an inch. Divine light intertwined around his body, and his aura was terrifying. The big shots of the Zhan family trembled in fear and despair. Their clan's nirvana-level patriarch was killed so easily. How could they defeat Lin Tian? Must you be so ruthless? Why must you be so vicious? A Zhan family grand elder said unwillingly. Lin Tian tilted his head and swept a glance at this person. His eyes were cold. It's right for you to kill me, but it's vicious for me to kill you all. When the Zhan family grand elder who spoke heard this, his face suddenly became a little livid. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He couldn't be bothered to listen to this person's nonsense. He directly used the holy bow in place of a sword and slashed out a ray of sword light. With a poof, the person who spoke was smashed into pieces. Even his divine soul was destroyed in his crumbling body. His current cultivation was at the 8th heaven of enlightenment. Even under normal circumstances, it was not difficult to kill a half-step nirvana-level grand elder of the Zhan family, not to mention now that he had swallowed the Transcendence Divine Pill to increase his combat power by 10 times. After killing this person, he coldly tilted his head and looked at the Zhan family patriarch and the other big shots. It's your turn. The Zhan family patriarch and the others trembled fiercely. Their eyes were filled with fear and regret. They regretted why they had to chase after Lin Tian again and again. Not to mention the fact that they had lost so many strong people of their families. They even ended up in such a situation now. However, with the Zhan family patriarch as the leader, these people's faces became ferocious again. This was because at this time, they all knew that Lin Tian would not let it go no matter what. No matter how they pleaded, it was impossible to have the slightest bit of effect. Even if we die, we will make you pay the price. You vicious bastard. A Zhan family grand elder roared and madly rushed towards Lin Tian. The aura outside his body became violent and chaotic. Far away, whooshing crocodile sneered. Want to self-destruct to hurt the enemy? You're quite decisive. Lin Tian naturally saw this and didn't care at all. He raised his hand and slashed out a ray of sword light. With a poof, the Zhan family grand elder was smashed into pieces before he could successfully self-destruct. His body exploded, and his divine soul was also destroyed. Kills! The other Zhan family elders roared and learned to self-destruct. They madly rushed towards Lin Tian with resentment in their eyes. Lin Tian stood where he was and didn't move at all. He only used the Saint Bow in his hand as a sword and casually slashed out rays of sword light. Poof! 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 Bloody mist exploded one after another. The Zhan family elders who rushed towards Lin Tian died, tragically one after another. Lin Tian attacked mercilessly. He only stood where he was and swung his sword. Golden rays of sword light shot out from the Saint weapon-level deity, slaying Bao, shattering the void and cutting everything into pieces. One by one, the Jean family elders died tragically in the Jean family residence. Bastard, you deserve to die. I curse you to die a horrible death. The Jean family patriarch roared with resentment. You big families and forces are usually arrogant and domineering, bullying and suppressing others as you wish. When others come knocking on your door and you're no match for them, you only know how to curse. At the end of the day, you're all a bunch of trash. Lin Tiantan said coldly. The Jean family patriarch's face turned green, and the viciousness in his eyes intensified. You clang. The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. Lin Tian waved his hand, and a golden ray of sword light flashed past and landed on the Jean family patriarch's body. In an instant, the Jean family patriarch exploded, his body and soul destroyed. His gaze was indifferent as he looked at the other Jean family elders and above. He attacked mercilessly and pulled the saint bow again. Wang! In the Jean family residence, spiritual energy surged. He pulled the bowstring and released it, shooting out dozens of saints slaying arrows. Although he had casually shot out these arrows, they were ultimately killing arrows shot out from a saint weapon. Furthermore, he had shot out these arrows with his current battle strength that had increased by 10 times. Therefore, every single arrow could instantly kill a half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner. Poof! 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 Bloody mists exploded continuously. In just a few breaths' time, all the Jean family elders and above were killed. In an instant, blood dyed the Jean family residence red. The ordinary Jean family disciples were terrified and in despair. Ancestor, grand elders, patriarch, the Jean family disciples were terrified. These people trembled as they looked at Lin Tian in despair. Let us go. Someone begged for mercy in fear. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at the ordinary Jean family disciples. Did you guys want to kill me in the past? Hearing his words, the disciples of the Jean family trembled, and the fear in their eyes became even more intense. Don't kill us, please, please. No one dared to answer this question. They only begged for mercy. Lin Tian's cultivation was extremely powerful now. Just by looking at the Jean family disciples' expressions, he knew that these people had wanted to kill him in the past. He stared at these people and spoke after a while. I won't kill you, but I will definitely not leave behind any threat to my family and friends. His expression was calm as he formed a seal with one hand. He activated the 4-symbol seal with his battle prowess that had increased by 10 times. In an instant, many Tao diagrams of the 4 symbols flew out and quickly entered the bodies of every Jean family disciple. Instantly, the Jean family disciples trembled violently. The aura on their bodies decreased rapidly and disappeared in a few breaths' time. My cultivation? My true yuan. My divine power is gone. Everyone from the Jean family was in a state of panic. All of their cultivation states had disappeared at this moment. They were all ordinary people now. Lin Tian stared at these people coldly. Scram. Chapter 1044. The disciples of the Jean family all panicked, and their faces turned pale. Their cultivations had all been crippled. Cultivation, my cultivation, everyone trembled. They were originally powerful cultivators, but in the blink of an eye, they were reduced to ordinary mortals. This blow was too great. For a moment, all the disciples of the Jean family trembled, and some even wailed as if the world had collapsed. Lin Tian stared at the Jean family and said coldly, "Why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting for me to kill all of you?" As soon as he said that, the disciples of the Jean family trembled violently again, and their wailing disappeared in the blink of an eye. Go, go, go. Let's go now, someone said, rolling and crawling out of the family. Then the other disciples of the Jean family also ran out of the family, and no one even packed their luggage or other things. Now that they had lost their cultivation, they were in pain and despair, but they were still alive. They were really afraid that Lin Tian would change his mind and kill them all here. These people had lost their cultivation, and their speed was limited. Many of them stumbled and fell after running a few steps, but they did not dare to stop. They stood up and ran out of the family. Just like that, the ordinary disciples of the Jean family all ran out of the Jean family's territory and fled to a farther place. TSK, TSK. Heartless Crocodile glanced at these people and landed in the Jean family's territory. Wu-Yi brought little AI with him. He quietly descended from the sky. Whooshing Crocodile came to Lin Tian's side and said, "You've dealt with it quite quickly. You've taken away all the accumulation of this lineage." Lin Tian nodded. Of course. He was not slow, and soon, he took away all the Jean family's resources. There were a total of 3 high-grade divine weapons, many mid-grade and low-grade divine weapons, and even more Dao weapons and immortal artifacts. The Lingjing's was at least 5 million kilograms. At the same time, the divine pills, precious medicines, secret techniques, and ancient scriptures of this lineage were all swept away by him. The value was quite extraordinary. After that, he arrived at the center of the Jean family's territory. He channeled the dragon burial scripture with 10-fold battle prowess and broke through the soil, revealing the Jean family's foundation. There were a total of 128 immortal veins under it. Using the strange secret art recorded in the dragon burial scripture, he compressed all 128 immortal veins into the size of small dragons, then sealed them with dragon patterns and put them into the stone ring. These immortal veins, as well as the 5 million kilograms of Lingjing that he had collected from the Jean family, were all prepared to be absorbed by the little guy in the divine egg, so that the little guy could be born earlier. Done, he said. At this time, all the valuable things in the Jean family had been kept by him. Then let's go, Whooshing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded and looked at Wu-Yi. Then he gestured for Wu-Yi and little AI to walk out of the Jean family together. Immediately after, when they were about 100 feet away from the Jean family's territory, he waved his hand and slashed out a dense sword aura behind him. All the sword auras landed on the Jean family's territory. In the blink of an eye, the Jean family's territory was completely destroyed. Smoke and dust spread in the Jean family's territory. Lin Tian and the others didn't care. They walked further away without looking back. Lord Crocodile knows of a few good places in this heaven region. I haven't been there before. Why don't we take a look? Whooshing Crocodile said. Lin Tian had no objections. He looked at Wu-Yi and asked, "What do you think?" Okay. Wu-Yi sent out a divine thought. It was as concise as ever. Lin Tian couldn't help but want to laugh. This heavenly venerable level woman was too easy to deal with. No matter where they went, she had no objections. Let's go. You lead the way. We'll follow, he said to Whooshing Crocodile. Let's go. Whooshing Crocodile smiled. We should be able to dig out a lot of good treasures. It's best to dig out a divine vein. Lin Tian gave it a sideways glance and slowly followed it. A few days passed in a blink of an eye. After the destruction of Enlongjing with the chaos physique, the seventh heaven was once again in chaos. Some people discovered that one of the top forces in this heaven, the Jean family, was destroyed. The place where the Jean family was established turned into a dilapidated ruin. The most important thing is that some people found out who destroyed the Jean family through some descendants who were lucky enough to survive. It's that person again? It hasn't been long since he killed the Chaos Physique, but he actually destroyed the Jean family. Does he have a grudge with the Jean family? I heard that Jean Yuji of the Jean family provoked that person and was beheaded. The Jean family has been chasing that person for many times. The Jean family has been passed down for so long. But many people's hearts palpitated in shock. At the same time, the Anlin family, which is a close friend of the Jean family, trembled when they heard this news. Even the Nirvana realm old ancestor of this generation was no exception. Lin Tian had brought the monarch emperor along and destroyed the Jean family. If he suddenly had a sudden impulse and came to the Anlin family, then what could the Anlin family use to block him? For a time, the big shots of this faction were all flustered. Every one of them was on tenterhooks. Time flew by, and soon another 6 months passed. In these 6 months, with Whooshing Crocodile leading the way, Lin Tianyi and the others went to various mysterious and fantastical places in the Heaven Domain. Along the way, they found many things. They found many Genesis veins, Ling Jing, and so on, which raised Wuxing Crocodile's cultivation to the 5th heavenly layer of Enlightenment Realm. Lin Tian reached the peak of the 8th heavenly layer of Enlightenment Realm. At the same time, the sacred egg in his body also absorbed more spirit qi. The patterns on the surface of the egg became brighter, and it seemed that it would be born soon. Of course, as they passed through one mysterious place after another, they also encountered danger several times. They encountered dangers that were enough to kill Nirvana realm powerhouses, but in the end, they passed through them easily because they had Wu Yi, who was at the Empyrean realm, with them. On this day, 3 people and 1 crocodile stepped out of the mountain and walked to a flat grassland. The green grass swayed with the breeze. "I'm going back." Wu Yi looked at Lin Tian and sent a gentle message. "Go back." Lin Tian was a little moved. He had been with this quiet girl for half a year and felt that she was very familiar and close. They got along very well. Now that he suddenly heard that she was going to leave, he was a little reluctant to part with her. However, he quickly calmed down and asked, "Where are you going back?" "The 9th heaven on the mountain," Wu Yi said. "You came from the 9th heaven?" Lin Tian asked. "Yeah," Wu Yi responded. Lin Tian nodded. In fact, he wasn't surprised at all. With Wu Yi's strength, it's normal for her to live in the 9th heaven. He looked at Wu Yi and wanted to persuade her to stay, but after thinking about it, he gave up. "Then, see you next time," he said. "Okay." Wu Yi sent a message to Lin Tian and Wuxing Crocodile. "Thank you." Then, her eyes landed on Lin Tian, her lips moving. This was the 2nd time she opened her mouth to speak since they met. Her voice was still soft, even more pleasant than divine will. "Thank you." Her words were concise, but they contained a lot of things. She thanked Lin Tian for inviting her to travel with him, and also thanked Lin Tian for risking his life to help her resolve the collision of the 2 monarch bodies. Lin Tian could roughly understand what Wu Yi was thinking at this time. He shook his head slightly and said, "It's what I should do." Whether it's because Wu Yi saved his life, or because Wu Yi is the master of little AI, or because Wu Yi made him feel very familiar and close to her, it's worth it. Even if he dies at that time, he will have no complaints. Wu Yi looked at Lin Tian. Her eyes wavered slightly, but they soon became calm again. She stood quietly in the same place. The void behind her cracked open, and a world portal appeared. Hazy light intertwined in it. "Big brother, AI will miss you." Little AI stood next to Wu Yi and waved at Lin Tian. Since Wu Yi was going back, she naturally had to go back with her. Lin Tian chuckled and waved at little AI. Wu Yi looked at Lin Tian. She was beautiful and gentle. She sent a message to Lin Tian with her divine sense. "Goodbye." She took one last look at Lin Tian. Behind her, the world portal surged and swallowed her and little AI together. In the blink of an eye, the 2 disappeared from this space. Lin Tian looked at the empty space in front of him with a hint of reluctance in his eyes. He was slightly dazed. Clang! Suddenly, the ear-piercing sound of a sword reverberated. A rain of blood-red light suddenly fell from the sky like floating flower petals. However, it was intertwined with an extremely cold and murderous aura. It was extremely terrifying. A glaring blood-red sword slashed directly at Lin Tian. Fast, accurate, ruthless. It was like a celestial flying from the heavens. Lin Tian was staring blankly at the place where Wu Yi and little AI had left. When the killing sword approached, his whole body trembled. He couldn't even dodge in time. "Get out of the way!" The 5 elements alligator rushed past from the side, knocking Lin Tian away with a bang. Splat! Blood splattered. Wuxing Crocodile was directly penetrated. Its aura instantly weakened to the point where it was even weaker than a flame. Lin Tian's expression changed drastically. Old Crocodile. He moved his feet and appeared beside Wuxing Crocodile. Golden divine light rushed out of his body and enveloped Wuxing Crocodile. He immediately activated the sun's nirvana technique. Blood-red flames rushed toward Wuxing Crocodile to help Whooshing Crocodile heal. However, the effect was minimal. Whooshing Crocodile's aura was rapidly decreasing. It was like a fragile ceramic that could shatter at any time. Myriad extinguishing god dynasties. Blood soul slaughtering Tao technique. Speaking of which, why did Grandpa Crocodile block this killing sword for you? No, it shouldn't be. Whooshing Crocodile's body was penetrated. There was a transparent bloody hole in the front and back that was difficult to heal. It was a ghastly sight. Blood dripped from its mouth. This group of F***ers. They aimed the moment Miss Wu-Yi left. F***ck. Grandpa. Don't talk. Lin Tian gritted his teeth and activated the sun's nirvana technique even faster. Blood-red flames continuously surged toward Whooshing Crocodile. He also activated the king's territory reincarnation diagram and great Tao nomological laws to protect Whooshing Crocodile's lifeline. At the same time, he opened his delusion breaker eyes and scanned his surroundings. He stepped on the yin and yang ho and flew away with Whooshing Crocodile. The myriad extinguishing god dynasty's assassins were here again. They were in the dark. If he stayed where he was, it would definitely be very disadvantageous for him. Clang, 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 clang. Chapter 1045. Lin Tian turned pale. The 9 sword radiances were too fast, and their auras were extremely powerful. They sealed off every inch of space around him, making it difficult for him to move. Even if he opened his divine eyes of illusion breaker, it would not be of much use. Although he could capture a trace of their movement, their speed was so fast that he could not stop them. Damn it! He gritted his teeth. It was enough to guess that the people who slashed out the 9 swords were all Nirvana realm experts. Clang! The 9 killing swords slashed in front of him in the blink of an eye, all aimed at his forehead. Death drowned him. However, at this moment the space suddenly trembled. The air seemed to have stopped flowing, and the 9 killing swords stopped in front of him. Beside him, the void suddenly split open. Wu-Yi, who had left, walked out again with little AI, like a god. Chi, 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 chi. A crisp sound was heard. The 9 killing swords collapsed and disappeared in an instant. At the same time, in a place far away, 9 different spatial ripples appeared in 9 different places. Obviously, the assassins of the great extinguishing divine court had begun to escape, and they had used the space teleportation platform. Come back! Wu-Yi sent out his divine thought. In this world, the void surged like waves. Bang! 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 9 black-robed figures were shaken out, and all of them rolled onto the grassland. They were immediately imprisoned and suppressed. They could not even move a finger. Everything happened too quickly. Lin Tian was shocked. He did not expect that Wu-Yi, who had left, would return. However, he quickly reacted and said anxiously, Wu-Yi, help. Whooshing Crocodile had blocked the great extinguishing divine court's blood soul slaughtering Tao technique for him. It was too severely injured. Although he had suppressed its injuries with the Sun Nirvana technique, the reincarnation diagram, and the Great Path Order, it was not easy to completely heal it. At this moment, he did not have the time to be surprised by Wu-Yi's return, and he did not have the time to care about the suppressed assassins of the great extinguishing divine court. Uncle Croc! Little AI couldn't help but cry out in alarm when she saw the hole in the Whooshing Crocodile's body. Wu-Yi raised her hand and pointed a finger at Whooshing Crocodile. Immediately, Whooshing Crocodile's wounds healed rapidly. The bloody hole disappeared in the blink of an eye, and its monster body recovered. Its essence, chi, and spirit also reached their peak in an instant. It was even slightly stronger than before. It shook the 5-colored wings behind it and flew up. Thank you, Miss Wu-Yi. It thanked Wu-Yi. Lin Tian heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Wu-Yi and thanked her. Wu-Yi's voice was calm. I walk slowly, so I can still sense this place. Lin Tian nodded. He understood why Wu-Yi had returned. He tilted his head and looked at the few assassins from the all-extinguishing God dynasty who were being suppressed not far away. The murderous intent in his eyes was extremely thick. In their sea of consciousness, there should be very powerful fragmentary divine runes. Can you suppress them? He asked Wu Yi. Hearing Lin Tian's words, Wuxing Crocodile's eyes flashed with a demonic light. It naturally knew why Lin Tian asked this question. It couldn't help but look at Wu Yi. Yes, Wu Yi replied. Lin Tian stared at the 9 assassins from the all-extinguishing God dynasty. His eyes were extremely cold. Help me suppress them? Wu Yi nodded. A circle of light fell on the 9 assassins from the all-extinguishing God dynasty. The 9 of them suddenly trembled. Done, she said. The fragmentary divine runes were very troublesome. Once touched by an external force, it would immediately explode with a terrifying destructive force. There was almost no way to avoid it. The more powerful the person, the more troublesome the fragmentary divine runes would be. The 9 assassins from the all-extinguishing God dynasty were all Nirvana realm powerhouses. The person who planted the fragmentary divine runes on them was most likely the ruler of the all-extinguishing God dynasty. Ordinary emperors wouldn't dare to touch them. However, this was nothing to Wu Yi. Lin Tian nodded. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. He approached the 9 black-robed assassins and approached one of them. This person was suppressed by Wu Yi and couldn't move. However, he could still speak. He said coldly, "What are you doing?" Just now, the 9 of them all heard that Lin Tian wanted Wu Yi to suppress the fragmentary divine runes in their sea of consciousness. Obviously, he wanted to get something from their sea of consciousness. As powerful assassins, they weren't afraid of death. However, they were worried that the secrets of the all-extinguishing God dynasty would be leaked. Lin Tian stared at this person and directly stepped on his face. His foot landed firmly on this person's cheek, and there was a bang. He didn't show any mercy. With his current powerful physique, this person couldn't withstand it even though he was a Nirvana realm powerhouse. Half of his face was crushed and blood splattered everywhere. This person from the all-extinguishing God dynasty let out a muffled groan. However, because he was suppressed by Wu Yi, he couldn't resist or struggle. Lin Tian didn't waste time talking nonsense. His glabella lit up and the yin-yang lotus sea appeared. It turned into a huge lotus sword and slashed into the consciousness of this person from the all-extinguishing God dynasty. Ah! Suddenly, this person couldn't help but scream. His consciousness was violently invaded by Lin Tian's yin-yang lotus sea. The injury he suffered was terrible and extremely painful. Lin Tian didn't care. His vast divine consciousness entered this person's consciousness and searched for all the secrets of the all-extinguishing God dynasty. Damn it! Stop! This person screamed. Lin Tian clenched his fist and smashed it down. He directly broke this person's throat and interrupted him. On the other side, Wuxing Crocodile had a ferocious look in its eyes as it closed in on another person from the all-extinguishing God dynasty. F***CK. I'll play with you guys too, it said coldly. Although it had taken the initiative to block the sword for Lin Tian, that sword was still from the all-extinguishing God dynasty's assassins. It was very unhappy. It came in front of this person and entered this person's consciousness with its divine consciousness. Like Lin Tian, it searched for all the secrets of the all-extinguishing God dynasty in this person's consciousness. At the same time, it took out a superior-grade divine sword and the great 5-element skill to cut off this person's arms and legs. Then, it performed a terrifying Demon Clan's secret skill to transform the Demon Clan's poisonous fog into this person's body. Suddenly, the assassin from the Great Extermination God Dynasty let out a painful groan. Then, gradually, as the special poisonous fog that the 5-elements crocodile had injected into his body spread wantonly, he began to scream in pain. His flesh and blood were rotting at a visible rate. On Lin Tian's side, the all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassin's throat was smashed. What was left of his face was an extremely painful expression. At this time, Lin Tian began to use the Lotus Sea phenomenon to slowly disintegrate the assassin's soul and consciousness, causing him unbearable pain. Then, after a full 15 minutes, this assassin's soul and consciousness completely collapsed, and he died. Lin Tian's eyes flashed coldly as he closed in on another all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassin. As Lin Tian approached him, this person's eyes trembled. He had seen Lin Tian's fellow assassin in pain earlier. He stared at Lin Tian and hissed, "Kill me." Lin Tian squatted down with a cruel expression. "You want to die a simple death? Not so easy." As he spoke, he raised his right hand slightly. Elixir flames intertwined and turned into a strange ancient seal. Then he imprinted it on this person's chest. Suddenly, this all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassin trembled violently. He groaned and let out a heart-wrenching scream. What did you do?" This person screamed. However, because he was suppressed by Wu Yi, he could not move or even struggle. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He had planted a forbidden ancient technique from the medicine encyclopedia on this person. It was called the Heart-Devouring Remit Seal. It used divine power to create a special elixir flame seal. After it was injected into a living being's body, it could slowly burn the living being's flesh and blood. The process was extremely painful, as if thousands of poisonous insects and ants were tearing at the body. The most terrifying thing was that this process was also very slow. If it was not disturbed, it would take several years to completely burn a person's flesh and blood. In other words, if the caster did not take the initiative to undo this Dao technique, and the person who was implanted with this Dao technique did not have the ability to break this Dao technique and did not commit suicide, then the person who was implanted with this Dao technique would have to endure the pain of being bitten by thousands of poisonous insects every moment for the next few years until his flesh was completely burned away. Only then would he be truly free from this pain. It could be said that this technique was very cruel. Therefore, although the power of this technique was not very strong, it was still listed as a forbidden ancient technique in the medicine encyclopedia by Master Apothecary. Lin Tian had used this technique on the master of the true moon immortal cult in the sixth heaven. This was the second time he used this technique. The assassin from Wansu God Dynasty screamed in pain. Lin Tian's glabella shone brightly, and his divine sense directly entered the assassin's sea of consciousness to search for the secrets of the all-extinguishing God Dynasty. There were fragmented divine marks in the other party's sea of consciousness, and they were extremely terrifying, interweaving with an incomparably shocking aura. However, when his divine sense approached, the fragmented divine marks didn't move at all because it was suppressed by Wu Yi's powerful strength. He used his divine sense to search for all the information about the all-extinguishing God Dynasty in the assassin's sea of consciousness. His eyes flashed with a cold light from time to time. After dozens of breaths, Lin Tian obtained all the information. His divine sense immediately turned into a bone-piercing killing sword, crazily slashing at the assassin's sea of consciousness and divine soul. The assassin screamed, and blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. He was extremely miserable, like a malicious ghost. Such a terrifying scene made little Ai, who was not far away, tremble. She quickly hid behind Wu Yi and stuck out her little head to look ahead. Wu Yi stood in place, still quiet. The screams continued, and it was very ear-piercing. On the other side, the Wuxing crocodile killed an assassin from the all-extinguishing God Dynasty and looked at Lin Tian. "Kid, your skills are not bad." It sneered and then closed in on another all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassin. In the blink of an eye, another miserable scream sounded. You kill me." Lin Tian and the Wuxing crocodile attacked together, using all kinds of cruel methods. They mercilessly greeted the all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassins. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. It was extremely bloody and cruel. More than 6 hours later, the screams finally stopped. The 9 all-extinguishing God Dynasty assassins were tortured to death by Lin Tian and the Wuxing crocodile. The scene was too horrible to look at. Kid, how is it? The whooshing crocodile looked at Lin Tian. Lord Crocodile found the location of 3 of their strongholds. I found 9. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.